Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is our very special Spider-Man Far From Home completely open spoiler discussion. Guys, I cannot emphasize this enough. I cannot emphasize this strongly enough. I cannot overemphasize this at all. This is an open spoiler discussion for Spider-Man Far From Home. Some people have still not seen the movie. If you're one of them, be warned, we're going to talk openly about this movie as if all of us went to go see the movie together, okay? So there you have it. There's your warning. With that said, yep, guys, it's all spoiler discussion time here. And it feels like we've had to wait an eternity to do this one because normally a movie opens on a Thursday night and we talk about it on Sunday. This one opened on Tuesday. So we've had to wait a little bit longer than normal to do these spoiler discussions. And we're going to talk Spider-Man Far From Home. All right. Now, before we get to what this is really all about, hearing what you guys have to say and what you guys want to talk about, let me just give you my general impressions really quick. You already saw me review the movie. I really like this movie. I like it quite a bit. I had a very good time. I've already seen it twice. I'm going to go back at least one or two more times to go watch it again. I think it's the best action we've ever had in a Spider-Man film. And right now, it might get as high as number 3. Right now, it's my number 4 favorite Spider-Man film out of the 8 that we've had. I still think Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is the best Spider-Man movie we've ever had. I still think Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2 is the second best Spider-Man movie we've ever had. I would still put Homecoming, which I totally adore, I would still put Homecoming this much above Far From Home. But like I said, maybe when I see Far From Home a couple more times, I might swap the 3 and 4 spot with Homecoming. But for now, I still have Homecoming a little bit higher than Far From Home. And then I have Far From Home, which I really enjoyed. Now, look. Let me tell you some of the things that I didn't like about this movie, or some of the problems I had, because we're going to probably spend the next 3 hours talking about what we love about the movie. So let me just start by throwing out some of the things I didn't like about the movie, and then we'll get into it. First thing is this. You guys know I have never liked the way they have made Peter Parker Spider-Man Iron Man Jr. They've basically made him Iron Man Jr. in the MCU. Everything from that stupid ass Iron Spider suit to, all that kind of stuff. And that's always bothered me. Well, they really doubled down on that in this movie. In this, Marvel has gone all in on making Peter Parker Tony Stark Jr., making Peter Parker Iron Man Jr. And I don't like that. I think Peter Parker is a strong enough character and a good enough character that you don't have to make him in Tony Stark's mold to make him a cool, interesting, fun, engaging character. And I don't like that they're doing that. So there's that. Doesn't ruin the movie for me, doesn't ruin the character for me or anything like that. I'm just saying I don't like that. And they seem to double down on that with this movie. And again, it's not a direction that I like. Another thing that really has not sat well with me, and it didn't sit well with me the first time I saw the movie, and after I saw it the second time, it really doesn't sit well. You're telling me that, Beck, you're telling me that Jake Gyllenhaal's character is a high-ranking Stark Industries scientist, so high-ranking that he's standing there off stage while Tony Stark is doing his presentation from Civil War. He's a high-ranking, notable Stark Industries scientist, and nobody recognized him. Out of all those people in that SHIELD base and everybody who sees him, blah, blah, nobody once went, why don't we just, we're SHIELD, why don't we do a quick facial recognition? Why don't we just pull a simple Google on him? Why don't we don't even have to use all of our advanced technology. Let's pull a simple Google on him. How about that? And we would have seen, oh, this guy's a high-ranking, was fired from Stark Industries. Maybe that's a little bit suspicious. And it always bothered me watching it the first time and especially the second time that nobody once thought to go, hey, let's just do a quick Google search on the guy. Take a picture of his face. Any facial? Oh, high-ranking Stark Industries scientist. Yeah, maybe that'll set off some red flags. So that kind of bothered me too. Sticking on the things that kind of bothered me a little bit, and it bothered me even worse the second time, the villain explaino scene. Now, look, in a movie, we need a scene where we start to understand the villain's plot. But there's ways to do it subtly, and there's ways to do it cheesy. And I thought Spider-Man Far From Home did the whole villain explaino scene really cheesy. Peter walks out of the restaurant. See, guys? And he jumps up on the table. Now let's go over in point detail about all of our nefarious plan and what the role each one of you played, as if they don't already know this and they haven't had this conversation 5,000 times. It was really cheesy. It was kind of lame. I'm not going to pretend that Jake Gyllenhaal wasn't really entertaining in it, because he was. But it was just like, really? Like, he jumps up on the table and go, now let's explain to the audience our evil plan, step by step, every little detail. And I gotta admit, that doesn't sit well with me, even though Jake Gyllenhaal is really fun and funny in that, and all that kind of stuff. Oh, and here's another thing that bothered me. I didn't really realize it the first time I saw the movie, but the second time I saw the movie, this is one of the other things that bothered me. It's like, Peter is a teenager, and I think we forget that sometimes. He's a teenager. He will make teenager mistakes. He will do dumb things as a teenager. That's going to happen, and we expect that to happen. And I like that they had him making some big mistakes, like how we almost killed Brad, right? I thought that was good because, Spider-Man wouldn't do something that dumb. He's a teenager in high school. Of course he's going to make some dumb mistakes, right? So we understand that. But Peter's also very smart. And it didn't hit me the first time I saw the movie, but the second time I watched the movie, I'm like, wait a minute. You want to take Edith, maybe the most advanced, satellite defense technology on the planet, and you want to, number one, give it away, but number two, you want to give it away to a guy you have literally had 3 conversations with. Really? You don't think that maybe, I don't know, a Dr. Bruce Banner might be a better guy to have those? Like, if you really wanted to get rid of them, and I did, the movie convinced me that Peter felt like he didn't want that burden. They did a great job at that. So I really felt like Peter was looking to unload them. But even though he's a teenager and will make bad decisions, I really thought, really? You met this guy 3 days ago? You've had 3 conversations with him and you're going to hand this over to him? I get why he didn't want to give it to Fury. I get that. But there were other Avengers. There were other heroes in the world that he could have thought, I need to seek out somebody like a Dr. Banner would have been perfect, who was really close with Tony. I don't know. It just seems to me like that was, even though as a teenager he'll do stupid things, that seemed like a little bit of a beyond a stupid thing for him to do and a little bit out of character for him. But anyway, and this one, I wrote this down. I put a note. Here's the other thing that kind of bothered me. Again, I didn't notice it the first time I saw the film, but I did. By the way, just in case you missed it and you're a little bit late, why is Sean just doing nothing but complaining about this movie? Because we're going to spend the next 3 hours just talking about all the things we love about it. So I'm just getting these things I didn't like about it out of the way right now, okay? I didn't notice this the first time I saw the movie, but the second time I did, which is this. What did Mysterio need Edith for? He was already doing everything. He was already artificially creating these elemental creatures. The movie starts showing that he destroyed an entire town. I don't know, I can't remember if it was in Mexico or New Mexico, but the movie starts seeing that Mysterio had already been there and destroyed an entire town. He already had drones. He already had the illusion technology. He already had all that. And I left the second time going, so what did he need Edith for? I mean, he was already kind of doing his whole plan. Now, I understand there were a few things he could do now with Edith that he couldn't do before, but it's like, in the scope of his overall plan, he already had drones, he already had the illusion technology, he already had the weapons, he was already fooling everybody, he was already presenting himself as a big superhero to the world, so why was Edith the big... Anyway, it just felt like the villain's big goal, objective, obtaining Edith, wasn't really all that necessary to his overall plan. Again, I didn't even notice that the first time I saw the movie, but it did kind of stick out a little bit to me the second time of the movie. But anyway, seriously, out of a 2-hour movie, those like 4 things are the things that bothered me a little bit. And every movie will have those. Everyone will have those. So now, let's go on and talk about the things we loved about the movie. More importantly, let's talk about things you guys want to talk about. We're going to spend the next close to 4 hours, I guess, talking about things you guys want to talk about. So let's not waste any more time. Let's jump over and see what you guys are talking about. All right, we're going to start things off here with Randall Cartwright, who wrote in, let's just go ahead and get this one out of the way. Mid-credit scene cameo. Boom! It's the elephant in the room. Of course, that's the first thing we're going to talk about. J. Jonah being played by J.K. Simmons. Now, by the way, let's not get too excited. There's been no official announcement that J.K. Simmons is going to play J. Jonah in future movies. This might have been a one-time cameo shot. It might have been a one-time cameo shot. Maybe. I'm certainly holding out hope that that's not the case. But, I mean, look, he now knows Peter Parker is Spider-Man, so you can't do this whole thing where Parker works for him at the Daily Bugle. Like, all that story is gone. You can't do any of that. So I'm wondering if this is just a one-time thing. But I remember the second time I saw the movie, I was with Ann. And Ann didn't know what happens in the credit scenes, right? So as the credits start, I lean over to Ann and I go, "You're about to see this entire audience lose their minds." She's like, "What's going to happen?" I'm like, "Just watch." And then, of course, JK comes up and everyone's like, "Yeah!" It was such a great moment. I love that. By the way, I say this up front. Usually, nothing important happens in a post-credit scene. Normally, it's just something like this, just fun for the audience to see, right? Like the Grand Master at the end of Thor Ragnarok. Coming out, it's like, "Yay, great revolution, everybody." Like, that didn't have any meaning or purpose. It was just fun. Sometimes a post-credit scene will have one big thing revealed or happen in a post-credit scene. This was the first time that a post-credit scene, the mid-credit scene with JK, had three big things. Big thing number one, J.K. Simmons. Big thing number two, Spider-Man being framed for the attacks. Big thing number three, Peter Parker's identity being revealed by Mysterio in it. Three big things. We haven't seen that happen in a post-credit scene before. So that was pretty awesome. Second post-credit scene was equally good. I'm sure some of you guys want to talk about that as we go, but it's the firework moment. And honestly, this doesn't speak well to it. The first post-credit scene is the best thing in the movie. That's not always great that the best thing in your movie is a post-credit scene, but it's just that the post-credit scene was so good. It was so good and definitely got everybody popping. All right, let's move on here. Aditya writes, does Mysterio have a chance to return? Thank you. I don't think so. I don't think we're going to see Mysterio return. I honestly think that was a one and done. I don't think his death at the end was another illusion. I really do think he's out at this point, so I don't think so, but anything's possible. Mighty Tank 1 writes, JK is back, baby. What was your reaction? I quasi-suspected he would be. And when I heard that there was some big thing that happens in a post-credit scene, my mind went there. So I thought there was probably about a 25% chance, but it was very positive. You guys know, I've been saying for years, I think if you reboot something, never bring the same actors back with two exceptions. I've always said, James Earl Jones is Mufasa, and then we got it. And I said, J.K. Simmons is J. Jonah Jameson, and now we got it. So I feel pretty good about that, man. I was pretty excited. Nathan Oswald writes, even dead, I'm the hero. One of the best lines. One of the best lines in the movie. Because that's so true to the Tony Stark character, Nathan. So like, even dead, I'm the hero. That's the perfect Tony Starkism. It was one of my favorite single lines in the movie. I love that. But it makes sense, right? Why Telos tell Peter not to say Captain Marvel's name? Yeah, don't invoke her name. I took it as a tone of endearment. But ultimately, I don't know why he chose those words. I think it was just meant to reflect the close relationship between Captain Marvel and Nick Fury. Maybe it meant something else other than that, but that's both times I saw the movie, that's how I interpreted it. Not much else beyond that. The Super Green Flash Tomorrow writes, F you, Brad. I love the Brad character. I thought the Brad character was, they say Homecoming was meant to be part modern day comic book movie, part 80s John Hughes style teen comedy. The Brad character is a character that perfectly anchors it in that John Hughes 80s style comedy feel, and I love the character. He was a dick, but I love the character, and I thought they used him perfectly, and I thought that was great. Nathan Oswald writes, so happy to see Peter Billingsley come back. Of course, the kid from A Christmas Story is back as one of Mysterio's guys. That was really cool to see. Chris Feldman writes, this version of J. Jonah seems more like Alex Jones, the conspiracy theorist. I wonder if most people will actually believe the story about Spider-Man. I think they will because there was video footage of it. I think it's going to cause a problem. I don't know how I feel about that because I think you're right. They do make him come off that way. But really, my favorite incarnation of J. Jonah Jameson in the comics is he's a good man. He believes in what is right. Now, he may have a different idea about what is right. He may be sold in on the wrong ideas about Spider-Man and all that kind of stuff. But when it comes down to it, there have been a number of times in the comics when J. Jonah stands up to the villain. And it's like, let me give you the what for. Like at his core, J. Jonah's a good guy with very different ideas, and who thinks right is wrong and wrong is right sometimes. So I agree with you. They did make it in that one short scene, and let's not read too much into one short scene, but you're right, Chris. In that one short scene, they gave him an Alex Jones kind of feel, and I don't know how I would feel about that if they did an entire movie like that, but again, I have my doubts that they're actually bringing him into the universe. I'm sort of suspicious that was a one-shot cameo, but we'll have to wait and see. Nathan Oswald writes, I'm glad the multi-reverse stuff is all BS. Me too. And you know what? Hey, let's just call it right now. Full credit to Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert Meyer Burnett called it on this show. He said, I bet you this is all BS. The whole multiverse thing with Mysterio, it's all a lie being made up by Mysterio. This Earth 616 thing, all being made up by Beck. And it turns out it was. So let's just call it now. Full credit to Robert Meyer Burnett. He called that, and I'm really glad it's all BS too. Tucker Flynn writes, over or under 50%, Spidey remains outlaw till his next movie, or do we see him get proven innocent in a non-Spider-Man film? You know what? Here's the thing. I will go over 50% that the Spider-Man as an outlaw thing is resolved before the next Spider-Man movie. How so? I suspect what they might do is what they just did with Hulk. You know, you spend all of Infinity War going, where's Hulk? Hulk and Banner have this conflict, blah, blah, blah. And what did we see it get resolved? No. They just start Avengers Endgame with him just saying, oh yeah, that's all resolved. It's all good now. What? And I have a feeling by the time we get to the next Spider-Man movie, and remember, the next Spider-Man movie is at least 3 or 4 years away. Like, the MCU has got Black Widow coming, Doctor Strange 2, Black Panther 2, Eternals, and Shang-Chi. Those are all coming, and they're all probably going to come out before the next Spider-Man movie. I have a feeling this is going to be something that's resolved off camera, and it'll be like a throwaway line. Yeah, thank goodness that other footage came out that showed that Mysterio's video was a lie. Or maybe Jay Jonah himself disproves the video. I don't know, but I have a feeling I will take a slight over 50% chance that this problem gets resolved off camera before the next Spider-Man movie ever happens. I don't know that for sure. I'm just saying that's my, I'm going to even take over 50% on that. All right. Aiden Foley writes, of all the Night Monkey movies, this is my third favorite. I'll tell you what, at first when Ned says Night Monkey, my whole theater laughed. I didn't think it was that funny. But then as everybody else in the movie starts referring to Night Monkey, it got funnier and funnier to me. I love the gag, Aiden. I thought that was hilarious. Nathan Oswald writes, I wanted a little bit more of the effects on a post-Endgame world, maybe like 10 minutes more in the beginning. But here's the thing. I see where you're coming from, Nathan, I do. But I'm glad they didn't, because this isn't Endgame Part B. This was Spider-Man Far From Home. And I don't think you use the standalone Spider-Man movie to start explaining larger universe stuff. They did a quick little thing at the beginning with the high school video montage, and I think that's all it needed. Otherwise, it's less a Spider-Man movie and more of an MCU as a whole movie. And I think by doing it this way, they kept the focus on Spider-Man. And I'm kind of glad that they did. I think they gave us everything they needed to give us. You know, they showed us a little thing of the high school where half people dust, and then they all come back. And you know, I think they did enough. Now, I would like to see the stuff you're talking about. I just don't know that the standalone Spider-Man movie is the movie to do it in. So I'm good with it. But at the same time, Nathan, I got to say, had they spent more, like another 10 minutes on the post-Endgame world, I wouldn't have had a problem with that either. I'm glad they did it the way they did, but if they did what you're suggesting, that could have been cool too. Chris Feldman writes, so let's see, where are we going here? All right, so based on the student newscast, the world believes Captain America died in the battle/blip, maybe returning the Infinity Stones. Is that correct? I have a feeling that the world doesn't know he came back. So whether they know the details that Captain America disappeared returning Infinity Stones, whether the Avengers revealed those minute details to the rest of the world, because that could be dangerous information. I don't know. Maybe they just believe he died during the battle. I really don't know. Either that he died or he never came back doing it, but I do have a feeling they don't know that old man Rogers is still running around out there. That's my guess, so I'm kind of agreeing with you there. Duroc Media writes, super chat to say something nice. Far From Home and John Campea are awesome. Well, thank you, Duroc. I appreciate that, man. It is always nice when somebody just wants to send a message just to be positive, so thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. All right, Aiden Foley writes, that illusion of zombie Iron Man is one of the darkest moments in the entire MCU. It is pretty dark. Mysterio even had Peter think Stark's death was completely his fault. Mysterio didn't do that. I think there was a part of Peter that already felt like maybe it was his fault. It wasn't Mysterio that convinced Peter that. I think one of the themes of the movie was deep down Peter feels something of a responsibility. Like maybe if he had done a better job at the battle at Endgame, that maybe he still would have been there. And of course that's not true, but I think one of the underlying themes is that Peter had survivor's guilt. And I like that about this movie. Peter was definitely struggling with survivor's guilt, and he was carrying that anyway. I think just Mysterio was playing on that fear and that doubt and that guilt a little bit. I don't think Mysterio put it there. I think he just kind of took advantage of it a little bit. But you're right, man. That zombie Iron Man scene was dark. That was pretty damn dark. Kara Black writes, the scene where Quentin Beck revealed himself in the bar was my favorite part of the movie. Jake Gyllenhaal, my goodness, what a performance. You know what? Here's the funny thing. I don't like that scene, but Jake Gyllenhaal was great in that scene. You know what I mean? It's like, I still think it was way too on the nose. Like they just might as well stop the movie and go, ladies and gentlemen, I am your villain for this movie. I would now like to pull up a PowerPoint presentation and walk you all step by step through my nefarious plan. Part 1. It was a little too on the nose. I thought you could have revealed that in a much better way than they did. But that notwithstanding, I actually thought Gyllenhaal in that scene pulled off that scene as well as it possibly could have been done. He was actually really, really great in the scene, even though I really desperately wish they would have done the scene a little bit differently. But that's just my take on it, Kara. But yeah, oh my goodness, his performance in it was fantastic. Duroc Media writes, another note, where are we at here? Totally had mind blown and thought of you when J.K. Simmons popped up. Biggest surprise for me. It was a great moment. It was a great moment. And by the way, I had a friend text me and say, because the day after I saw the movie, and day after I reviewed, or maybe it was 2 days after, but somebody wrote in a super chat on the John Campea Show asking a question about J.K. Simmons and about J. Jonah, and said, hey, do you ever think there's a chance that they could bring J. Jonah into the MCU, or do you think Sony's going to do it? And I said, my answer was something like, obviously I had seen the movie already, but I didn't want to give anything away. So I said, well, here's the thing. It's going to be up to what Sony wants to do. I mean, I don't know that maybe Sony will want to make the Bugle a place that Eddie Brock now goes and gets a job, and they might want to use J. Jonah in the Venomverse. Or maybe they're going to bring him into the MCU. I mean, I don't know, but it's going to be up to Sony and blah, blah, blah. And I got a text from my buddy who was watching the show and said, you deserve an Oscar for that performance. And I did deserve an Oscar for that performance. I made everybody believe that maybe he wasn't in it. And then another friend of mine wrote to me to talk about it. I said, I deserved an Oscar for that. Anyway, it was a great moment. It was the biggest pop of the entire movie, not just in the post-credit scenes. That was the biggest pop of the entire movie, because when J.K. Simmons comes on screen, the entire audience is, ah! Everybody lost their minds. It was such a great, awesome moment. Orange Hand writes, really liked it, but the Beck reveal was predictable, and the dialogue in the bar was on the nose at times. Wish they had subverted our expectations more. Well, I mean, yeah, but look, was the Mysterio turn predictable? Yeah, it's Mysterio. I mean, we all knew. I mean, there were some of us, like me, holding out to maybe a little bit of a hope. Like, wouldn't it be cool if they just actually do play him off as a hero? Wouldn't that be cool? But we all knew, even though I was holding on to that hope, we all knew it's Mysterio. It's a 95% chance he gets revealed as the villain, right? So, obvious. It is. That's not that big of a deal, because it's Mysterio. I don't think they were trying all that hard to fool us all that much. But I'm with you, Orange Hand, that the dialogue in the bar, the villainous plot revealed thing, they could have done that better. Gyllenhaal was awesome in it, but they could have and they should have done that better. Again, it was a little bit too on the nose. All right. Next up, Aiden Foley writes, I think Skrulls will be a big part of Phase 4. I don't think they'll be, I still don't think they're going to be that big of a part of the thing. I think they used them a little bit here for the post-credit scene, which was great, by the way. I especially love Ben Mendelsohn. Yeah, I'm really embarrassed as a shapeshifter that I didn't catch on to that. Like, that was great. That was awesome. But also at the same time, they're an alien race that are thousands of years more technologically advanced than Earth. And he couldn't figure out a little bit of illusion technology? Really? They're an alien species that are thousands, maybe tens of thousands of years more advanced than us. And they couldn't figure out a little... That was a little bit iffy, but fine. Then they had Mendelsohn go, I'm honestly, as a shapeshifter, I'm embarrassed that I didn't see through it. That was kind of funny. I did dig that. I still don't think they're going to be a big part, but it'll be interesting to see if they do. Aiden follows up with, I don't know if you noticed, but at the mid-credit scene, Peter drops an F-bomb that's cut off, very similar to Aunt May at the end of Homecoming. Yep, and I cannot help but wonder if that's going to be an ongoing thing with any Spider-Man movies that they do, because I thought it wasn't even forced. It's the proper response, both from Aunt May in Homecoming. Obviously. And it's completely the proper response from Peter in this one as well. So I won't be surprised if that kind of becomes a little bit of a tradition in ending Spider-Man movies while they're in the MCU. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see, but I did think that was great. All right, Joseph Mitchell writes, I knew Endgame was Stan Lee's last cameo, but I was just really hoping they were lying to us and would give us just one more. I was still looking. Yeah, no, I get it. And look, I knew he wasn't, because they were pretty emphatic about that. They confirmed many times that the upcoming Endgame movie at the time will be Stan Lee's final cameo. And there is something poetic about that Endgame be his last one. Then again, a Spider-Man movie being Stan Lee's final cameo also would have been pretty damn poetic. So I knew it wasn't, but I was like you, and I think a lot of us were like you. I think when the post-credits start, you're just waiting. Is Stan going to pop up? I was there too, even though we all knew he wasn't, but it would have been kind of nice, but they were pretty clear about it, so I guess we weren't surprised. Orange Hand writes, Beck reminded me of Jan Rog from Captain Marvel, a handsome warrior, the hero, look up who turns out to be a total jackoff. Oh, and Brad sucks. Again, Brad is such a great character. It was a brilliant idea to have that character in this movie. It provided a mechanism to do a lot of things between the characters, and it drove the narrative forward having that character there. So yeah, he totally sucks, but is a great character to have in there. And yeah, I mean, look, when you look at the performance that Beck gave in the movie, you could see why he would fool some people. Again, he was a high-ranking scientist of Stark Industries. You would think that somebody related with S.H.I.E.L.D. was saying, hey, let's just run it through Google Photos and see if he comes up somewhere. You'd think somebody would have done that, but whatever. We overlook it. Joseph Mitchell writes, Nick Fury felt a little off the whole movie, and I couldn't quite figure out why, and then boom, Talos, holy crap. I'm going to disagree with you on that. I thought he felt as Nick Fury as you can get with Nick Fury. I mean, that's just me. But I thought that Samuel L. Jackson played Talos playing Nick Fury as well as any Nick Fury we've seen before. I bought into it 100%. I thought it was a great Fury. I thought it was a very consistent Nick Fury with what we've had before. Never mind the fact that they never explained that he faked his own death in Winter Soldier, and somehow he's back in charge of S.H.I.E.L.D. again. I mean, whatever. That's just another thing. Like, they resolved the Hulk issue. They resolved that I think they will resolve the Peter Parker's identity being revealed issue and being framed for the crime. I think they we don't need to address it. Just everybody assumed that Nick Fury's back in charge. I thought he did it. I really thought it was a very consistent Nick Fury. I really did. But you sniffed something out there, and it turns out you were right. Lawrence Reed writes, wasn't it a bit odd that Mysterio didn't have to confirm giving up Edith, but Peter did? Yes, that was a complete inconsistency with the movie. Peter had to relegate over access and everything for Edith. He basically transferred it to Mysterio, yet Mysterio didn't have to transfer it back to him. All he had to do was just grab the glasses and I'm in charge again. That felt off. It felt like a little bit of a plot hole, but it was something they needed to do just to keep the movie going. So again, I agree that was a problem, but I don't think it was that big of a deal. It's a problem, but it's easy to overlook, and I'm not going to make a big deal. But I think you're right, Lawrence. I think that was an issue. Jesse Keller writes, holy balls, J.K. Simmons. I called it last week. Well, to be fair, Jesse, a lot of people were predicting, let's be fair here. It's not like you were the lone wolf crying at the moon in the night. There were a lot of people out there that were predicting that we're going to see J.K. Simmons or making wild guesses that we were going to see him back as J. Jonah. But it was awesome to see him there, man, when he popped up. Now, what I did miss, though, is I missed his hair. He went with the bald look. I missed the J. Jonah gray spiky hair. I was really wanting to see that. But hey, whatever. As long as it was him doing it. Again, I still don't think this means he's going to be in the MCU moving forward. I still kind of feel like it might just be just a one-shot cameo. But who knows? Maybe we'll get lucky moving forward. Joseph Mitchell writes, happy throw shield. How does Cap do that? That was a funny moment. That was a really good moment. How does Cap? It was just so funny when he whips it and he just falls at the thing's feet. That was a great moment. I really like that. Evelyn writes, I'm now sure Bob Iger is a longtime viewer of your show. No way both James Earl Jones and J.K. Simmons are just coincidences. You gave him the idea. Yes, that's right. Bob Iger watches the John Campea Show religiously, not just to find out what my opinion is, but to get the pulse of the movie-going audience. And when he heard me say for years, only 2 times you can bring back actors for reboots, James Earl Jones from Mufasa and J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah, and now Bob Iger has gone, yes, Campea, you're right, and he's done it for both. Obviously, I had nothing to do with that, but I'll live in this fantasy with you, Evelyn. I'll totally live in this fantasy world with you where Bob Iger is just listening to my show to get all of his ideas. I'll buy into that for now. I don't really believe it, clearly, but you know what? For Fantasyland, let's live there for a little bit. All right, Evelyn follows up with, great marketing of the film doesn't anything away. I mean, doesn't give anything away. Well, you could say that some stuff gets given away. You could say some stuff gets given away, but I mean, nothing important. Look, every trailer to every movie gives something away. Just by showing any image, you're giving something away, but it didn't give anything major away. Some people are upset that there's a lot of stuff in the trailers that aren't even in the movies, right? There's a few things in the trailer that don't even appear in the movie. So there's that. But yeah, they didn't, but I don't think anybody was surprised though. Look, the Elementals were there. Mysterio's fighting them. I said, you guys remember, with the first day the trailer came out, I said, I have a feeling Mysterio is pulling a Syndrome from the Incredibles movie. Remember Syndrome from the Incredibles, the villain? What was his thing? He created the problem so that he could show up and defeat the problem and look like the hero. And I said, I think they're pulling a Syndrome from Incredibles. Sure enough, there's that. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that thought that. I'm sure a lot of you guys probably picked up on that as well. But you're right. Overall, they didn't give too much away for the film, and that's a good thing. Nathan Oswald writes, the illusion nightmare scene in the parking garage felt like something that Sam Raimi would do. It kind of does. But I got to say this too. I had a little bit of a logic problem with that nightmare scene. And the logic problem is this. You can't convince me that he was able to program that in a day. Like that whole VR, that would have had to have been programmed. And there's no way he could have slapped that together in a day. Again, does that disrupt my enjoyment of the scene? No. It's just one of those little things that we can easily overlook, but it is a little bit of a problem. It is a little bit of a problem. So like really, that whole thing, that probably would have taken a team of guys a month to put together, but he just slapped it together in a day. Yeah, whatever. But whatever, we overlook it. We don't care. Okay, Evelyn writes, only a brief scene, but Talos is still hilarious. I loved it. I love the Talos appearance, Ben Mendelsohn, almost as much as JK showing up as J. Jonah. I really, really did. And the way he talks, I mean, it's just, I love that character. He was one of my favorite things about Captain Marvel, and I loved his little appearance here. And I really do, while I don't think the Skrulls are going to play a major part in the MCU moving forward, I will kind of hope they do, if only to ensure that we get more Ben Mendelsohn playing Talos, because I just think he's great. Ryan Lohner writes, are all of Peter's enemies going to be Tony's arch nemesis, Sloppy Seconds? I tell you, he's Iron Man Jr. So, Spider-Man Homecoming, who's the villain? A guy that's pissed off at Stark. Spider-Man Far From Home, who's the villain? A guy who's pissed off at Stark. He is Iron Man Jr. But no, I have a feeling that moving forward, they'll probably start to get into his own rogues gallery a little bit and move away from tying everybody to Tony Stark. At least I hope they do. I really, really hope they do. But anyway, that's a good observation, Ryan. All right, Chris Feldman writes, was the trailer scene with Spidey and the cops in the movie? No, I don't remember it. MCU fake trailer scenes are more irritating than MCU fake deaths. No, they're not. Fake deaths are more irritating. Now, at one point, though, that scene was... Of course, there's a scene in the trailers where Spider-Man in that god-awful Iron Spider suit is taking out the robbers and talking to the cops. Hey guys, I'm too busy doing your job. Just kidding, going on vacation, right? That was going to be in the movie. But we heard, John Watts talked about that. He said it just disrupted the flow. They decided to edit it out of the movie, that the movie didn't need it. And I agree with him. The movie didn't need it. Movie didn't need it. So it wasn't a necessary scene that furthered the plot that other scenes weren't furthering already. Therefore, take it out. Even if it's a good scene, it's not serving the overall movie, pull it out. But it was at one point going to be in the movie. So that's why the marketing teams had it in there, because it was going to be in the movie at some point. Ultimately, the director decided to take it out, and the rest is history. David Goldstein writes, do you think they will use the Skrulls to undo everyone knowing Peter is Spider-Man? It's possible. It's possible. But again, do you wait 4 years to do that? I don't think we're even going to see it play out. But that is an easy way to do it, right? Have a Skrull take on the form of Peter Parker, giving an interview while Spider-Man, the real Peter in Spider-Man outfit, swings by behind shooting webs and all that kind of stuff. Boom. Instant done. It would be an easy way to do it, but I think this whole problem, and I hope I'm wrong about this, but I suspect, because we've seen Marvel do it before, I suspect they're just going to solve this problem off camera, and they'll just mention it in a future movie when the problem's already solved. We've seen them do it before. I got a feeling they might do it again here. Maybe not, though. I hope not, at any rate. All right, Tony Hurd writes, I think it's kind of poetic that phase 1 began with Tony willingly revealing his identity, and phase 3 ends with Peter unwillingly having his revealed. Maybe yes, maybe no. I mean, really, when you think about it, in the MCU, how many characters actually have a secret identity anymore? Bruce doesn't have a secret identity. Thor has no secret identity. Cap never had a secret identity. Tony hasn't had a secret identity since 1. Black Widow's identity isn't secret. Vision is just Vision. Ant-Man, I suppose you could say Scott, to a degree, has a secret identity. Okay, I guess maybe Ant-Man and Wasp. Who else? Everybody else, nobody else has a secret identity. Peter was the last guy to have a secret identity, basically, other than Ant-Man, and that's up for debate. Because the government knows who he is. He was in prison for it. He was under government. No, see, yeah. So Scott Lang doesn't have a secret identity. That's gone too. The only guy left with a secret identity is Spider-Man. And that's gone. So whether they now reinstitute that and convince the world that that Mysterio video was a lie, maybe. But he'll be the last one. He'll be the last one. There are no secret identities anymore. Daryl Best Wadley writes, they really are making Spider-Man the new Iron Man. Yep. And he and Tony are the only ones to have 2 movies in one Marvel phase. I suppose that's true. I hadn't thought about that before. Because Iron Man 1 and 2 happened before the first Avengers. Did it? I think so. Yes. I believe. Anyway, yeah, I never thought of it in that way before. But they really, again, I do not like that they're saying, Peter Parker's Spider-Man isn't interesting enough. We have to completely connect him surgically to Iron Man and Tony Stark and make him Iron Man Jr. Give him Iron Man's technology, make the Spider-Man suit an Iron Man suit, blah, 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 blah. I don't like that. I can overlook it. It doesn't ruin the movies for me at all. I can still love and enjoy the movies, but I really wish they'd taken a different approach. That's just my feeling on it. All right. Daryl follows up with, my favorite scene was the Mysterio illusion fight. It's not my favorite scene in the movie, but I did like it. It was pretty intense, a little unbelievable because of what I talked about a little bit earlier, but a really good scene nonetheless. Not my favorite, but a really good scene. Daryl follows up, I wonder if they will try Peter as an adult. I don't know that he's going to get to trial. I think this whole thing is going to be resolved off camera, but who knows? We'll have to wait and find out. The average Avenge the Chicken writes, love Peter and MJ in this movie. Tell you what, I was not big on Zendaya in Homecoming. I didn't hate her in Homecoming, but I wasn't all that big on her. Then I saw her in Greatest Showman. I'm like, hey, she's getting better. Like, she was actually pretty good in Greatest Showman. I mean, her singing was fantastic. But I'm like, I'm starting to buy into her a bit as an actress. I thought she was great in this movie. And now remember, she's not Mary Jane Watson. This is a different character. It's not Mary Jane Watson. Yes, the initials are still MJ, but it's not Mary Jane Watson. I thought Zendaya was great in this movie. And that's a great example of just because I think an actor or actress at some point isn't very good, they can get better. She's gotten better. Every time I've seen Zendaya, she's gotten better and better. I quite enjoyed her in Greatest Showman, and I thought she was fantastic in this movie. And I love the dynamic between her and Peter. I really do. I think it's great. Chris Feldman writes, I hope Happy and Aunt May become a real couple. They already kind of are. That little speech that they remember, they're already involved, but they hadn't put a label on it. I think they are a real couple. I could watch a whole Happy and Aunt May movie. I totally could. Just Plain Steve writes, good call out to Peter's identity and post-credit scene, or should they have waited for the next film? Time will surely pass by the next film. Do you think they just recap the ramifications of that? It's exactly what I've been saying, Just Plain Steve. Well, first of all, was it a mistake to do it in a post-credit scene? No, because it gave a big bang to the post-credit scene. That post-credit scene already had two other big bangs. He's being framed for the attacks, and J.K. Simmons is J. Jonah. But they threw in that third one, which was the biggest one of them all. I thought it was a great move to put that in there. And just like you're saying, great minds, Just Plain Steve, great minds. I really do think that they're playing this off as something that's going to be resolved off camera. The ramifications are going to be worked out off camera. We've seen Marvel do it before. I believe they're going to do it again. The only way to not do it is if the next Marvel movie was, again, a Spider-Man movie. That's the only way. Is if they had Spider-Man Home Alone, Spider-Man 3, Home Alone is the next one, and that was going to come out in 8 months. Then you can pick it up. As things stand, we could get 3, 4, or 5 other MCU movies taking place between now and the next Spider-Man movie. Who knows? Just because they haven't announced a Spider-Man movie yet doesn't mean we're not going to get one soon, but it seems we're going to get minimum 2, probably 3, maybe 4, and possibly 5 MCU films between now and the next Spider-Man movie. So that's what got me, that's the part that has me a little suspicious that it's all going to be resolved off camera. And by the time we pick up the next Spider-Man movie, it's all settled. Whether they just go, yeah, it's a good thing nobody believed that viral video that J.K. or J. Jonah Jameson put out or something like that. I have a feeling that's the way they're going to go. I hope they don't, but I have a feeling that's what they're going to do. But again, I'm going to hold out hope that they're not going to do it. The Bearded One writes, the fights in this movie were something else, like right off the comic book page. Loved everything about Far From Home. Completely bought MJ and Peter together. This was... Again, I don't think the best Spider-Man movie, but the best action we've ever had in a Spider-Man movie. I thought it was great. I really did. I also completely loved the dynamic between Tom Holland and Zendaya in this. I thought the MJ, Peter, I still prefer 2 other on-screen couples. I still prefer Tony and Pepper, and I still prefer Andrew Garfield, Emma Stone as Peter and Gwen. I still thought they had better chemistry, but you know me, I don't like romance in my comic book movies. But this one, this Peter and MJ, Tom and Zendaya, bought it. Totally bought it. Really enjoyed every scene when they were in it together and the awkwardness of it and all. I thought it was great. I really, really did enjoy that. All right, Ethan's Tech World writes, I loved it. Almost fell out of my seat when we see J.K. Simmons. I think a lot of people did, brother. Then my jaw dropped at the end. I'm in high school, so that may be why I liked it even more. Yeah, look, it was great. The teachers were great. I didn't think they gave J.B. Smoove like the best material to work with. They gave the other guy, I keep forgetting the name of the other actor who played the other teacher. They gave him better material to work with. So I preferred that teacher a little bit more. The witch's joke was funny at first, but then kind of going back to it kind of fell flat. Unlike the spider monkey or the night monkey joke, which was a little flat at first for me, but got better and better the other times I used it throughout the movie. But yeah, man, everybody just, both times I was in a theater, man, the biggest pop clearly came when JK popped up on screen. By far the biggest pop. All right. Bearded One writes, I have a feeling they will use a fake Spider-Man to cover Peter's identity in the next appearance or movie. Totally possible, and that'll probably be in a flashback because I think it's going to be all resolved. But whether that's going to be a Skrull or something else, or they're just going to say people didn't believe the viral video or whatever, they're going to solve it. They're going to solve it. It's going to be resolved. David J. Lloyd writes, your thoughts on Ned and Betty's relationship? Totally thought it was adorable. Like they get on a plane, as soon as they get off the plane, oh, we're dating now. They get off the plane again, oh, we've broken up. I thought it was adorable. I did. I thought it was completely adorable. I love Jacob Bartolone, by the way. Luis Blanco writes, a good movie, but Snyder Cut is probably better. There you go. You hold on to that, Luis. All right. You do not ghost Nick Fury. I love that. You don't ghost Nick Fury. I love that. And I especially love near the end when he's talking, when he's saying, now I got a high school student dodging my calls. I thought it was great, which is one of the reasons, going back to what was mentioned earlier, that I thought this was a very consistent Nick Fury, but that's just me. Mad1306 writes, so they setting up Sword, which is the new Shield. Okay, for those of you who don't know, Sword in the MCU, not in the MCU, but in Marvel is like a different branch off of Shield. Shield looks after threats in the world. Sword kind of looks for threats extraterrestrially. And it does kind of feel like, with the second post-credit scene, that Fury was like, okay, we're just getting too damn many extraterrestrial threats hitting. We need to set up a different division of S.H.I.E.L.D. We need to set up a Sword. That could be what they're doing. It could be something completely different. All right? Fury could be doing something for Captain Marvel there. I don't know. But it's not crazy to think that second post-credit scene has to do with them setting up Sword. It's possible. David J. Lloyd writes, when Happy brought up the porn Peter, loved it. That was one of my biggest laughs in the movie. Okay. We were in Germany at the hotel and there was a pornography thing on the thing. It was listed as something else. And Peter's just like, okay, let's not talk about this anymore. Loved it. That was one of my, I'm not going to say it was the biggest laugh in the audience, but it was one of my personal biggest laughs, David. I love that joke. I thought that was great. Jake C. writes, if Venom and Spider-Man cross over, do you think the reverse could happen with Sony spinning off a villain like Mysterio into his own movie? There's a lot of ifs in there. If this happens, and whenever you get into ifs building on top of other ifs, it becomes very tricky. I don't think so. I honestly think Mysterio's now done. I don't think we're going to see Mysterio again. I could be wrong. We've seen many. I mean, Marvel is the MC fake death universe, right? They live for fake deaths. But I really do have a feeling that Mysterio was a one and done villain, and for good reason. He played his purpose. He played his part, and his part is now done. So I think we're not going to see him again. Whether it's in a crossed over universe of some sorts, whether it's in standalone ones, I got a feeling it's done. So I'm going to stay on that from now. But this is the Marvel Cinematic Fake Death universe. So let us not completely eliminate the possibility that we could see Mysterio. It's obviously possible, but I'm going to guess that they're done with him. We'll find out. Ryan Lohner writes, Jameson, I should have brought my white pants. Yep. I mean, what can you say, Ryan? I mean, everybody was so stoked and excited, including me. I should have worn my white pants. Collins E. Oh, God, this is another one of my biggest laughs. I love Led Zeppelin. And I'll tell you what, Collins, there were two reasons why I laughed completely hard at this. Number one, because the joke was funny. Number two, because I knew there was at least 1/3 of the audience who didn't get the joke. And it's like, guys, that's AC/DC. There was at least 1/3 of the audience, both times I saw it, that didn't get the joke. And when I realized that, it made me laugh even harder. So it was a double-edged sword as a joke, dude. And I loved that part. All right, Roman Bryant writes, Peter's going to need a good lawyer. May even need the devil's help too. It better be Charlie Cox if he comes back. No, they've already established that. You're not going to see that iteration again. So it's an interesting thought. I like where your mind's going there, Roman, but it is not going to be Charlie Cox as Daredevil. It's just not going to be, unfortunately. Zombatron 5678 writes, Happy/Pepper probably just deny the reports by JJ. I mean, they can do that, sure, but JJ's got video. He's got video of Mysterio saying something. So, I mean, I don't think I think they're going to resolve it, but I don't think just Happy and Pepper denying it would necessarily fix the situation, but who knows? Let's see what they go with it. Roman writes, so glad they brought back the final swing. So glad they brought back the final swing. I'll be honest with you, Roman. I'm not sure what you mean by that. If you guys know what he's talking about, you guys discuss it amongst yourselves in the chat board below. Dropkick Aggie just sends in a super chat. Thank you, Dropkick. ZMG Ruler writes, I hated Mysterio revealing Spider-Man's identity. Oh my God. Well, first of all, yes, you hate it, but come on. You can't deny that was a huge pop moment, right? That's a huge pop moment. Hold a second. I just got to respond to a message from somebody you know who's writing to me right now. 6 or 7. Sorry to do this, guys, but I've got a bunch of people coming over tonight to watch the big UFC fights tonight. So I got to keep my eye on my phone because I'm trying to do 2 different things at once. And again, that was from somebody that you guys know. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I get it. Like, you don't want that to happen to Hero, but oh my God, it left everybody in the audience shocked. Right? And so, well played. Again, I think it's just going to be resolved off camera, but I thought it was a great moment. I thought it was a really good moment because it got everybody in the audience going, woo! Like, right? And that's what you want to get in a movie. So I thought it was pretty cool. Dropkick Aggie writes, Spidey trapped in illusion scenes were brilliant. I thought they were really quite good. I didn't like those scenes as much as a lot of other people, but visually, holy crap, they were great. Especially as somebody mentioned a little bit earlier, the whole zombie Iron Man thing. That thing was crazy good. All right, where are we at here? Dropkick Aggie writes, damn good film. Peter struggling with life balance and the sheer nervous/awkward nature of Peter/MJ teenage romance, both incredibly relatable. I'll tell you what else I really liked about it. Going to your point here, Drop, is that, you know, I heard some people rumbling like, I've heard some people saying like, come on. The world could end here, and he's worried about getting back to some girl he likes in high school. When the world is in danger, kid, if you don't solve this problem, there isn't going to be a high school left for you to have a romance with this girl in, right? But to me, those people are forgetting that Peter is a high schooler. He's a kid. To some people, he's a child. Of course, that's where his mind is at. And I love the fact that this movie made that a part of his struggle. It's easy for you and me as an audience, maybe a lot of us as adults, to go, come on, kid, that's stupid thinking. If you don't save the world, there's not going to be a girl for you to develop a relationship with. Don't be an idiot. But he is a high school kid. That's where his priorities would be. And I love the fact that they showed him struggling with that. I thought that was a strength of the movie, just like you do, Drop. I thought that was a definite strength of the movie. All right, let's keep moving on here. Next one up is also Dropkick, who writes, did not fully buy into motivation for villain group. Beck seemed sinister enough, but that many normal people being fine with that much death, yeah, I agree. I agree. That... Because now you're talking about these people being not just disgruntled, you're talking about all these people being absolutely inherently evil. Like when they start talking about the death of, first of all, the death of anybody, the death of one innocent. Clearly, that Mexican city that got destroyed, that Mexican town that got destroyed, people clearly died. But when they start talking about half of London, when they start talking about maybe thousands, maybe tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people dying, men, women, children, whatever, that everybody was just cool with it. Yeah, okay. Yeah. But again, this is a comic book movie, and I said this during my review, and I couldn't say why at the time, but it really does. This is even a narrative that feels like it comes right off the comic book pages, right? And that is something a lot of the henchmen would never struggle with. If this were a more thoughtful movie, I think that should have been an issue. But having this big gaggle of people that they're all just like, yeah, let's murder 100,000 people. Let's slaughter a whole bunch of children. Yeah, let's do that. All because we didn't like Tony Stark. That goes beyond greed of a bank robber character. That goes beyond a heist. That now you're getting into truly illicit level evil people. And that did seem like a bit of a stretch. Again, it's not something that distracted me from the movie. It's a small thing, but I don't think you're wrong, Dropkick. I do think that's an issue. But whatever. I mean, that's what we do with a lot of our comic book movies. Whatever. And we just go on. So it didn't distract me from the film, but I think you're right about that. That is an issue in the film. All right. Sam Fisher writes, loved it. Loved how Daily Bugle seems to be an MSNBC/Fox News type organization. Also, were they setting up Sword in the end credits scene? I believe so. Yeah, I believe so. And there's also a problem. The Bugle is a newspaper. Why is J. Jonah doing video addresses? Anyway, the Sword stuff we already talked about. Yeah, I do believe there's a possibility they could be doing that. I think it's a greater possibility that it's just something else entirely that they're not letting us in on yet. But it does line up with maybe a version of Sword being done here. Don't know. We'll have to wait and see. And again, I'm not even convinced that we're going to get J. Jonah in future movies. I think this might have been a one-time, one-shot thing. But maybe they will bring him in. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff for us to think about and be excited about. Sam follows up with, love that Mysterio was a disgruntled Stark employee, and I love that he wore a motion capture suit with the bubble that made it make perfect sense. They made the character work. I absolutely agree. They made the character work. Him being a disgruntled Stark employee caused some issues, but at the same time, narratively, it made it flow. And the whole thing with the helmet and all that kind of stuff, and they just made it work. Look, the fishbowl helmet is the stupidest thing about Mysterio. And it's still stupid. But they made it work as well as it could possibly work. They really did come up with a way to have it work and function and all that kind of stuff. And to the point that it never became an issue throughout the movie to me. Sam follows up with, again, back and back plays. I love Led Zeppelin. Can I both be laughing hysterically and offended? Again, to me, the funniest part was, the joke itself is funny. But to me, the funniest part was the fact, and you guys, next time you go and watch Spider-Man Far From Home, because I think a lot of us are going to be watching it again, but the next time you go in and watch Spider-Man Far From Home, I encourage you, look around the audience, because I'm telling you, 1/3 of the people in your audience aren't going to get it. They're just going to think, oh yeah, what? Because most people, I'm telling you, there's 1/3 of people in that audience who are young enough that they're like, who's AC/DC? I'm telling you that, and then you're going to laugh yourself sick. Because to me, that was the funniest part of that whole gag. Sam writes, follows up again. If number 3 has the word home in the title, should we call this the Home Trilogy? Maybe. I got a feeling it will. Spider-Man 3, Home Alone. I'm telling you, Spider-Man 3, Home Alone is, Spider-Man, home is where the heart is. Or Spider-Man, home run. Or Spider-Man, home base. Or I don't know. But I do think they're going to put home in the title. You can make an argument that there's a coincidence that Spider-Man Homecoming, Spider-Man Far From Home, that they were both used the word home. You can make that argument that it's just coincidence. I think they are making a pattern, and I do think they're going to have that. And yeah, I agree, Sam. I think if they do that for the next one, I think you can legitimately call it the Spider-Man Home Trilogy. Whether they will or not on that for sure, we don't know, but I think it's a definite shot. Okay, let's keep going on here. Rude Shot writes, is J.K. Simmons the first actor ever to star as the same character in a reboot? Well, I don't think you can say he starred in this movie. He does do a cameo, so there's that. I mean, look, Mufasa, but then again, JK, this movie came out before Lion King, so there's that. It also depends on how, here's the bigger one. It depends on how you look at the Ghost Rider movies. Because the directors of Ghost Rider, remember there's Ghost Rider 1 that has Nicolas Cage. Ghost Rider 2 also has Nicolas Cage, but it, depending on how you look at it, it's actually a reboot. And I know the directors of the film, Mark Neville, Brian Taylor, when you talk to them about it, they call it a requel. It's a reboot that's kind of like a sequel because Nicolas Cage is coming back again. They actually saw Ghost Rider 2. Remember, they didn't direct Ghost Rider 1, but they saw Ghost Rider 2 as a reboot, but they also just happened to use Nicolas Cage. So there's an argument could be made that Nicolas Cage was the first guy to star as the same character in a reboot. But again, that depends on how you look at it. And then again, it's tough. I don't know if you can say JK starred in this movie. It's a cameo, but it hasn't happened often. It definitely hasn't happened. He might be the first one. He might be. Rude follows up with, Fury sends down a Skrull to save Pete's identity. Again, yeah, that seems to be a popular theory. Could be probably something that gets resolved off camera. Cinema Survey Troy writes, your guess on what Spider-Man 3 will be about? Impossible to say. Impossible. The movie's at least several years away, and we have several other MCU movies coming up between now and then that could fundamentally alter the nature of the MCU as we know it. So at this point, look, if Spider-Man 3 was coming out in 6 months, we can make guesses. The fact of the matter is right now, we have no idea when it's coming out. We're going to have multiple MCU movies out between here and there, where the MCU is going to be by the time we get to the next Spider-Man movie. So it's absolutely impossible to say. Curtis Lopez writes, Spider-Man 3 Parabellum. That would be fun. I'm down for it, Curtis. Curtis Lopez also writes, one of two. The post-credits scene really gives a new perspective to the film, watching it a second time round. Mysterio had a contingency to reveal Peter's identity. Also, it explains why Fury was so gullible to Mysterio. It was Talos. Even Sam Jackson's performance and inflections kind of hints towards it. Again, I thought it was a very consistent Nick Fury. And again, to me, the fact that Nick Fury was actually Talos in it does not explain not being able to figure out. Any low-level SHIELD agent should have simply been able to go, oh, let's take a look at this picture. And would probably already be well-versed on former high-ranking Stark Industries scientists. That still is a problem to me. And Talos being Nick Fury or Nick Fury being Talos doesn't explain that away. It doesn't explain that away at all. So that to me is still a bit of a problem, to be honest with you. As far as the inflections kind of hint towards it, I still don't see it. But you're not alone, Curtis. Other people are saying they mentioned it too, even in this chat, are saying that they mentioned it too. So there may be something to it, but again, I didn't quite see it myself. All right, Curtis follows up with, the Mysterio scene when he was tripping out Spidey in the fake SHIELD HQ was incredible. That was, visually, it was amazing. Again, I have a couple little problems with it, but visually speaking, outstanding. And again, it's been mentioned before, and I'm sure we'll mention it several more times in this broadcast, but the zombie Iron Man was a great touch. Very dark, but it was the one thing that would elicit terror. And I really think that was a good move, and I thought it was a very special moment. Curtis then follows up again with, love Gyllenhaal. He was having a blast. I agree. Gyllenhaal was great. And I think we all suspected he would be great. But it's one thing to hope and suspect he'll be great, and then to actually see him be great. And he was great. I loved him in this movie. Even when I had issues with what the character was doing, I thought Gyllenhaal brought life to it. I thought he was incredible. Bassam F writes, best surrealist sequence here or Doctor Strange? I'm going to go Doctor Strange. I think the Doctor Strange trippy stuff was a little bit better. But that doesn't mean that this one sucked. No. This one was great. But I'll give the nod to the Doctor Strange one. Good question, Bassam. All right, Curtis follows up and writes, one of two. They really hammered the Iron Man Jr. thing in this one, though. Yeah, they did. Especially when he was making his new suit. I'll give the Edith glasses a pass because it was important to the plot. I agree. Give the Edith, because again, to me, the Edith glasses aren't even an important part narratively. Because, like I said earlier, Mysterio was already kind of doing everything he did with or without the Edith glasses. He was destroying towns, making fake enemies, doing the illusions of him as the hero. What did he need either for? Anyway, maybe it was just a question of scale. But yeah, I don't like it, but they really were hammering more. Like I said, this movie, they doubled down on making Peter Parker Iron Man Jr. And I don't like it. Again, not nearly enough to make me dislike the movie or doesn't ruin the movie for me. No, not at all. But it is something I don't like. It's an element I don't like. I can still appreciate and love the overall thing, even if there are a couple elements that I don't like. And that is an element that you guys know right from Homecoming I haven't been thrilled with. To me, Spider-Man is cool enough on his own. You don't have to make him and attach him so inherently to Tony Stark and to make him Iron Man Jr. in order for him to be interesting and cool. I would have thought separating him from that would have been a little bit cooler, but whatever. It doesn't take me out of the movie. It doesn't ruin the movie for me. I still can appreciate the movie as being great. But yeah, they really did double down on that, this one. All right. Tristan Thorpe writes, my favorite thing about this movie is you can feel the weight Peter's carrying with Tony being gone. Yeah, the survivor's guilt. Tristan, I think you're absolutely right on that. He carries that with him. Like, look, Tony and him didn't know each other long, right? But he was his hero. He's the one who gave him his opportunity. He had been through life and death situations with Tony. He snapped in Tony's arms, dying. And he was there at the final battle of Endgame. And maybe if he had done more, he might be thinking to himself, I could have saved, but that survivor's guilt, and they did a great job playing on that. And I really did. That was one of the strongest pieces of the movie to me, Tristan, was that survivor's guilt. Tristan follows up with, my worry before going into the movie was the introduction of multiverse. So you can imagine how relieved I was when it was all like, me too, man. Me too. I'm glad. And again, full credit and full marks to Robert Meyer Burnett, who called it. He called it. He said, this Earth 616 thing and this, watch, not true at all. He's making it all up. Turns out he was. Now, we know that there's some form of multiple dimensions in the MCU because of Endgame. We know that that's the case, but this whole multiverse that there's 1,000 Earths and 1,000, thank God they got rid of that because I thought that was pretty damn horrible and it made me feel a lot better. Dustards writes, Nick Fury on a holographic beach. Was Phil Coulson revived by the help of Skrulls? First memory Coulson had after Loki kill was the beach in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Yeah, but remember, that was a totally different thing though, Mythbusters. That was a false memory implanted in him, right? So that was a totally different thing. What Nick Fury was in, or was just sitting in front of, when in the post-credit scene, was nothing. That was more like a Star Trek The Next Generation holodeck. That was him just relaxing. That was him just putting up a view of a beach for him. He was on a break. Remember, because then he gets up and goes, where's my shoes? Back to work, everybody. That was just Nick Fury on a break, sitting in front of a display, relaxing a little bit. So I wouldn't draw too much of a connection between what Coulson went through with the implantation of false memories and all that kind of stuff, compared to with what Fury was doing at the end. That was him just kicking back and taking 5. So I don't think there was any more of a connection. I can see where your head's going with that though, but I would say probably no connection there. I'm guessing, but who knows? Maybe there is a deeper meaning to it. All right, Tristan Thorpe writes, also, I dug Gyllenhaal's Mysterio. Me too, man. I thought he was great. Also, I dug Gyllenhaal's Mysterio a lot. Normally, I can't watch Gyllenhaal in anything after seeing Donnie Darko because I just can't unsee him in that role. And I didn't like the movie. Yeah, but dude, have you seen though Nightcrawler? Have you seen Nightcrawler? Because woo, that might replace Donnie Darko for you. But I'm totally in agreement with you, Tristan. I thought Gyllenhaal was outstanding. He was absolutely outstanding in this. His performance carries the character, and that's what made the character work. And I just don't know. I think by the end of the show, we're just going to completely run out of words to use talking about just how great he really was in this movie. He was a fabulous, and I'm 100% behind you on that one, Tristan. All right. Next one up, also from Tristan, sending in a really big super chat. Thank you, Tristan. Appreciate the support, man. Tristan writes, my favorite sequence is when Spider-Man takes on Mysterio for the first time. Very trippy and hard to watch with Spider-Man getting a beating like no other, especially at the end of the sequence where he gets ran over by a train. Brutal. It was awesome. And it truly is. Normally in a superhero movie, Tristan, you'll see when the hero's going to get flattened by the villain. It'll happen earlier in the film. This happens well into the movie that he absolutely gets his ass handed to him by Mysterio. And yeah, surviving getting hit by a train, also pretty cool. But the whole thing of him getting hit by a train was great, which brings up a problem later in the movie, right? Mysterio has seen Spider-Man survive a lot, including being hit by a train. Yet later in the movie, when they're fighting in London, Mysterio sees Spider-Man fall into the water, and he just assumes he's dead. Well, finally, killed Spider-Man because he fell into some water. It's like, really? You just, half a day ago, you just watched him survive being hit by a train. And now Mysterio just assumes he's dead because he saw him fall into the water? That to me was a little bit of a weird decision. That was a little bit of a weird decision. But you're right. I like the fact that they showed Spider-Man completely getting his ass handed to him to come back later. I guess usually that happens earlier in the film, but they had it happen a little bit later. But I thought that was really key, Tristan, completely did. And then Tristan follows up with another really big super chat, and he writes, and yeah, that first post-credit scene was wild. First seeing the great J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson, but he's a news anchor, smart, and Beck revealing Spider-Man's identity. Oh, I can't wait for the next Spider-Man movie. Again, though, here's the worry. The awesomeness of the post-credit scene is obvious. Because like 3 big, massive things, huge pop from the audience. What a way to end the movie. The thing is, the next Spider-Man movie isn't going to pick up from there. We're years away from another Spider-Man movie with multiple MCU movies coming between now and then. I just don't see how the next Spider-Man movie just picks up where this one leaves off. If the next Spider-Man movie was coming in 6 months or in a year, yeah, they could do that. They have done something awesome, but also created a little bit of a challenge and a little bit of problem for themselves, because how are they going to address that? I don't know. But again, I think it's all going to be addressed off camera, and I don't think the next one's going to pick up. Now, maybe they find a way where they can do that, which is great. And that's a possibility. But I still kind of believe, Tristan, after watching these movies, I do not think the next movie is just going to pick up right there. That, okay, when we last saw Spider-Man, his identity had been outed and he'd been framed for the attacks on London. Now we pick up our story. I just don't think they're going to do that. How they're going to manage it, how they're going to navigate it, I don't know. Do they just say it's all fixed by the time the next movie starts? They've done that before. Or will they try to find a way to implement that into the story? We'll have to wait and see. But what a way to end the movie. What an absolutely wild way for them to end that movie. All right. Nikki T writes, how did Peter get Edith back when Mysterio hadn't granted him permission, the authorization? No, that was brought up before. Completely agree. That is a problem. That's a problem in the movie. Now, unless you want to pull a BS thing and say, well, once it imprinted on Peter, it was always going to be accessible by Peter, no matter who he signed over authorization to. That seems like a stretch. To me, that was an issue and a problem. Again, not a problem that pulled me out of the movie or anything, Nikki, but I agree. That's a little bit of an issue. They should have done something where he tricked Mysterio into transferring access back to Peter. They should have done that. But they didn't, and again, it doesn't ruin the movie for me, but it is a little bit of an issue. Easy Target writes, the mid-credit scene could still be an illusion. I don't think so. I mean, I can see why you're going there, for sure. But I don't think so. I think it is the final chapter there. Mark Blaser writes, my eyes got very wide in shock when I saw JK as JJJ again. Pretty powerful wishing, my man. I know. The 2 guys I always said you could see them coming back in reboots. We now have them back as reboots, which is great. And what a marvelous moment when he popped up. And again, after a 2-hour great Spider-Man movie, the biggest cheer from the audience is reserved for J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson at the end mark. All right. Matt Sifjada writes, the exposition scene at the bar was badly executed. I agree. Beautifully performed, but I agree it was badly executed. They could have done that better. Matt follows up with, Shane Peter can't work with J.K. now because he's exposed. Yeah, that's exactly what I was pointing out earlier, right? So having JK, which is part of the reason why I don't think JK is actually going to be back in later movies. I think this might have been a one-shot special cameo, but they have now completely taken away any possibility for that classic Spider-Man later of Spider-Man being a photographer at the Daily Bugle, working for J. Jonah like we did in the previous movies. That's gone now. Unless they find some weird alternate reality warping kind of way to fix it, which is lame. But yeah, that seems to be a ship that has sailed now, Matsiv. Brian Esparza writes, both Homecoming and Far From Home ended with, what the yeah, I know, we were talking about that a little bit earlier. I would love it if that becomes a tradition and they do that in the next Spider-Man movie as well. Brian follows up with, guess Peter is going to need a good lawyer. Could be a good way to introduce Matt Murdock. Somebody else just said the exact same thing, man. Into the MCU, although I doubt that's how they'll go. But yeah, they're not going to go about it that way. Again, though, I don't think there's any way. I don't see how the next Spider-Man movie just picks up where this one left off. I don't see how you do that. We've got years until the next one with multiple MCU movies happening in between. So I don't see it. So that's why I'm thinking this might be resolved off screen, but that doesn't mean it's going to. Maybe they do. Maybe they find a way to do it. We'll have to wait and find out. And then Brian follows up again with, so wait, did Fury dust or was it Talos? No, it was Fury. Like, honestly, I really only think Talos has been Fury for a couple of weeks. Even in the conversation between Talos and Fury at the end, it sounds like he had just recently gone back there because, okay, so the kid transferred to a kid. It sounds like that was his first job to do. So to me, and this may not be the case, I'm just telling you what I, as an audience member who's only seen it twice, but the way I interpret it was that Talos has only been Nick Fury for a couple of weeks. That was completely my impression, that he's only been Fury for a few weeks. I didn't see anything that suggested it's been longer term from that. It's even in the conversation between Talos and Fury at the end. It sounds like he's only been in that position just for a little bit. So I don't think it was a longer term thing. AFC writes, could Marvel backtrack on Peter's ID being exposed? Or is that it? Completely changes the future of this Spider-Man and the stories if everyone knows. Yep, completely does. But again, like we said, that possibility is still there because none of the other heroes in the MCU have secret identities anymore. So it is possible that one of two things happen. One, they resolve the issue and everybody knows who Peter is by the time the next Spider-Man movie starts. Or two, they resolve the issue and they're back to people not believing that Peter Parker was actually Spider-Man. Now remember, at some point in the comics, in the Civil War comics, there's that big moment where Peter has the press conference with Iron Man there and reveals to the world, I am Peter Parker. So it's not like it's unprecedented in the comic books either. But I believe, and I can change, after we see what's coming up in future MCU movies, I could totally change my mind. So I am not locked into this opinion by any stretch of the imagination. My guess right now, as a pure speculative guess, right now, which could change later, is that by the time the next Spider-Man movie comes along, this will have already been resolved off camera in such a way that Peter's secret identity is reestablished, that the video gets disproven or shown to be a fake or something along those lines. That's where I think they're going with it right now. All right. AFC follows up with, also the illusion fight was perfect. Need a rewatch. I don't think it was perfect, but it is pretty damn, and visually it's astounding. I think, I already said that I think the Doctor Strange trippy stuff was better, but this is close. This is close. I really did appreciate it a lot. Elia Abdel Gawad writes, won't have time to see before your discussion, yet spoilers don't ruin things for me. Curious, is Goose in the movie? Wish she was in Endgame. Well, obviously everybody here now knows that no, Goose was not in the movie and not in Endgame, unless Goose is also a shapeshifter and we didn't even realize it was Goose. That's always a possibility too, I suppose. I suppose that in and of itself could be a possibility. But I'm going to guess that Goose was not in the movie in any way, shape, or form. Okay. Matsif Jada writes, Mysterio was really relying on military not getting involved. It's true. Another little plot hole with Mysterio's plan. I agree with you on that. Jimmy Anderson writes, Tom Holland is good, but I think Garfield plays both Peter Parker and Spider-Man so damn good. Do you see Bill Skarsgård playing a villain in any of the upcoming movies? Again, I don't, Jimmy, I don't do. Could X actor be in X movie? I don't do those questions. Any actor that's a good actor, I could see in an upcoming movie. Any actor that's a decent actor. Is Bill Skarsgård a decent actor? Sure. So could he be a villain coming up? Sure, him and a thousand other guys. So there's that. Look, dude, I really did love Andrew Garfield as Peter Parker and Spider-Man. I thought he was great in it. I really did. I have been coming around to maybe even prefer Tom Holland's over Andrew Garfield's. I'm not sold on that yet, but I got to tell you, Jimmy, I'm with you. I did love Andrew Garfield as him. It doesn't mean the movies that he did were better than these Spider-Man movies, but I really did love Garfield as Spider-Man. And guys, by the way, if you want to see something special, in case you haven't seen it before, go and see if you can look up the video on YouTube of Andrew Garfield at Comic-Con giving a speech about why it means so much to him to play Spider-Man. It's so touching and it's so beautiful. Go check that out. So I'm with you, Jimmy. I love him as Spider-Man. I'm loving Tom Holland as Spider-Man too, but I really did love Garfield as Spider-Man. All right, Star Killer writes, wish Peter would have went to San Fran in post-credits and bump into Tom Hardy and have his spider senses go off. Yes, but again, I don't think Marvel wants to have Sony's verse connected to theirs. So we knew that was a long shot, but man, I was into it. I was totally into it. And I wouldn't have been shocked. I thought there was a possibility. I think we all know that Marvel doesn't want that, but even I thought there was a possibility. And it would have been very, very cool. But again, I think Sony wants to connect their universe to the MCU, but I don't think the MCU wants to connect their stuff to Sony at this point. And I get it. I totally do get it. But how fun would that have been? How fun would that have been to have the two Toms bump into each other? Dude, that would have been awesome. All right. M. Drosha writes, another Spidey villain created by Tony Stark. Yep. We sense a theme here. They better not do that for the third one. Twice is okay. 3 times is a definitive, obvious pattern. Here's hoping that's not what they do that time around. Stars writes, this may have been the filthiest Spider-Man film. It was fun. Best action. I still think Homecoming had better charm. I still think there were some other films that had better humor. I still think overall there were better films. Into the Spider-Verse, Spider-Man 2. I still prefer Homecoming a little bit, but damn, this was a very good Spider-Man movie. Really enjoyed it, had a lot of fun with it. Andrew Riaz writes, how did Mysterio hover? Oh, okay, dude, this is another one that really bothered me. How did Mysterio hover to the rooftop to talk to Peter during their heart-to-heart conversation if his flight ability was always just an illusion? I didn't think about that the first time I saw the movie, obviously. But then when I was watching the second time, I'm like, wait a minute. How is this happening? As he's sitting next to Peter, having his heart-to-heart on the rooftop, he can't actually fly. When we see Mysterio flying, that's supposed to be an illusion. And yet here he is talking with Peter. Oh, buddy, now let's go and have a drink together. And yeah, plot hole. Doesn't ruin the movie for me. Doesn't take me out of the movie. But you're absolutely right, Andrew. That was a bit of a problem. That was a logic problem. Stars writes, glad the multiverse was a lie for now, at least. I'm with you, Stars. You and me, buddy. I'm totally on the same page. For now, thankfully, it was all a lie. And again, kudos to Robert Meyer Burnett, who called that a long time ago. Guy Volt writes, same month alone, we get Mufasa and J. Jonah Jameson. Not only is it the two guys that I've always wanted to come back if there were reboots, or at least I would be accepting of if they brought them back in reboots, they are coming back in the exact same month. By the way, I am seeing Lion King this Tuesday. I'm seeing it in 3 days. I'm so excited for it. I cannot begin to tell you how excited I am for this movie. You're going to see in 3 days. So I'm going to see JK as J. Jonah, and I'm going to see James Earl back as Mufasa, all in the same week. Kind of pretty cool. I'm very excited about that. JB Bonifacio writes, I found it hilarious that the second post-credit scene dangled Secret Invasion in front of us, only to find out it was Talos doing Fury a favor. Yeah, I see again, look, the MCU's version of Civil War is nothing like Civil War in the comics. Fox's Days of Future Past is really nothing like Days of Future Past in the comics. They could do a version of Secret Wars, but obviously it won't be anything like it is in the comics, because you know the Skrulls' role in Secret Wars in the comics would have to be 100% different from what it would be in this now, right? So they could still be doing a Secret Wars, but it seems unlikely. Not impossible. I ain't saying it ain't going to happen. I'm just saying right now it seems unlikely unless they were really changing the story, like way more than they have other stories, because we all know the role the Skrulls play in the comic book version. It would have to be completely opposite here. So I'm not sure that that's what they're doing. I buy more into they're setting up a sword situation, which, by the way, sword is interconnected to Secret Wars anyway, but that's a whole hubbub for another thing. But yeah, seriously, if it wasn't for the mid-credit scene with J.K. Simmons, I'd be tempted to say that second post-credit scene with Fury is one of the best post-credit scenes they've ever done in the MCU. But it gets overshadowed by the J.K. Simmons one, obviously, and for obvious reasons. But man, I think this is the best back-to-back double, as far as one movie goes. No MCU movies has a better set of post-credit scenes than Spider-Man Far From Home did. At least that's kind of my opinion right now, at any rate. All right, Zombatron, 5678 writes, best Happy ever. He's so good in this movie. He is great in this movie. And he's very consistent. Jon Favreau was very consistent with the Happy he's played in the other movies as well. I loved him in this. I thought he was great. NUFC Adam writes, this had some of the best Spidey action scenes. I'll tell you what, NUFC, it is my fourth favorite Spider-Man movie, but I'll go on record and say I think it's the best action period we've ever had in a Spider-Man movie. I really do. Now, Spidey had some great action in Civil War. There was some great action in Homecoming. The library fight in the Amazing Spider-Man was awesome, but I honestly think this was probably the best action stuff I've seen in a Spider-Man movie. That's just me personally, but that's my opinion. All right. We get now to Orok Usaki, who writes, really big super chat. Thank you for the support, man. I appreciate that. 2222. I feel like someone from the production team of Spider-Man Far From Home watches your show because the first post-credit scene became a reality, and it's something you have always talked about for so long already. It's true. It's true. Like somebody else mentioned a little bit earlier, I like to think that Bob Iger watches my show and, realize, hey, Campea's on to something. Let's do what Campea suggests. And then he decided to go that way. Clearly, that is not the case. But it is fun to see that stuff. Look, how many things do we talk about that we'd love to see in movies that actually never happen? That's 99% of the time. It is pretty fun when you get that 1% of the time where there's a few things you'd like to see happen, like James Earl Jones coming back as Mufasa, J. Jonah being played by J.K. Simmons again. It's always fun when that 1% of the time happens. Let's not fool ourselves. It's still only 1% of the time, but it does feel really good when it happens, dude. And yeah, I'll buy into it. I'll live in this fantasy world where we're all just going to pretend that Bob Iger watches this show and that's where he got his idea from. Sure, I'll take it. Totally not true, but I'll totally take it. All right, guys. Listen, I'm just going to take about 3 or 4 more questions. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take just a short break. We've been going almost an hour and a half now. I need to go and refill my drink. I need to get the air conditioning turned on. It's starting to get hot in here. It's a hot day in the San Fernando Valley here in Los Angeles. But hey, at least there's not another earthquake today. Yeah, I had that 6.4 one the other day that where half my stuff in my office fell over. Then we had a 7.1 yesterday. Here, maybe we'll get lucky and this show won't be interrupted by another earthquake today. But I do got to turn on the air conditioning. So here we go. The other black guy writes, wait, so how long has Talos been Fury? Again, I'm thinking just for a few weeks. Everything I saw in the movie just suggests to me it's only been a few weeks. Maybe it was longer, but I didn't see anything in the movie that suggests it was any longer. If you really listen to the conversation between Talos and Fury, it sounds like it's just been for a short time. Magic K writes, what's your theory on how they're going to fix Peter Parker's identity problem? I think they're just going to fix it off screen. I think we're just going to get to the next movie and it's like, hey, thanks a lot, Mrs. Potts or Miss Potts, for putting it so Mysterio's video that he put out looked like it was fake and saving my identity. You're welcome, Peter. I think it's really just going to be that simple. Maybe not. Maybe they'll make it a bigger plot point, but I think it's going to be a little thing that they just fix in between films. Jinyu Hichi writes, do you think this might open the door for Miles? No, I don't. Not in the least. Jinyu follows up with, do you think Aunt May might be killed in the next movie? Oh, I think it's possible. Look, it's a standard superhero trope, but it's an effective one. Somebody close to the hero being killed. Somebody close to the hero being killed is a standard operating trope of most comic book movies, but it's an effective one. And yeah, I think there's a possibility, not a high possibility, but I'd say there's a 1 in 5 chance. There's a 20% chance we see Aunt May die maybe in the next Spider-Man movie. Who knows, but we'll find out. Horse Moose 1, I love the name, writes, J.K. Effin Simmons, ladies and gentlemen. Good to see him back, man. It was good to see him back. Again, they played him a little bit too, what's the guy's, Alex something or other. They played him a little bit too much like that whack job. And that's not kind of my JK, or my J. Jonah Jameson, but still, it was great to see him back in that biggest pop in the audience. It was awesome. All right, last question we're going to take, and then we're just going to take a 5-minute break, guys, if you'll indulge me. Last question right now before our break. Ryan Lohner writes, wait, so many people promised me they were coming back from this movie in Infinity War. Wait, so many people promised me they were coming back from this movie in Infinity War. One last time. So many people promised me they were coming back from this movie in Infinity War. Sorry about that, Ryan. I don't know what it is I don't know what it is you're asking, so I unfortunately I can't answer that. My apologies, dude. I apologize. All right. We're going to get to Mark Badolado's question here in just 5 minutes, guys. We're just going to take a 5-minute break here, talk about Spider-Man Far From Home amongst yourselves for the next few minutes, and I'll be back in 5 minutes. I'll see you in just a little bit. And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you guys for letting me take a little bit of a break there, refilling my drink, use the bathroom, get things going. Let's now pick things back up and keep on rolling. And we're going to keep things rolling here by starting with Mark Badolato, who writes, I love this movie. Do you think Captain America actually died between Endgame and Far From Home? Or did they tell everyone that because he's now old and retired? Yeah, I don't think, I think it was, honestly, Mark, I think it's just a simple matter of the fact that they just didn't let people know that he came back. I don't know that everybody did. I think the only people that we know are Hulk, Sam, and Bucky. They're the only three people who know. They may have told a few other people. They may have not. But I think the assumption I'm going on here, Mark, is that they didn't let the rest of the world know that he came back so he could just live in peace. You know what I mean? So he wouldn't be bothered. So that's what I'm guessing. I don't know that for sure, but that's my guess. Mark follows up with both post-credit scenes were amazing, but how long do you think Fury's been sending out Skrulls instead of him? Was Fury actually at Tony's funeral? I believe he was, yes. Again, the impression I got, I saw nothing in the movie to suggest that he hadn't just been out there for a couple of weeks. It really does feel like he's only been gone for a couple of weeks. If you really listen to the conversation between Talos and Fury at the end there, it doesn't suggest anything outside that. So I only think he's been gone for a short amount of time. At least that's my theory. Could be wrong about that, but that's kind of the way I think it leans. All right, Chris Feldman writes, no other Avengers watch the news. None can help. Here's the thing, though. We said this when the Avengers starts going, and this is part of the problem with the big shared cinematic universes. Whenever you do a movie now, and even when there's solo movies and something happens, everybody's going to say, why didn't Thor come and help? Why didn't Ant-Man come and help? Why didn't Black Widow come and help? Why didn't Hulk come and help? I mean, that's the thing. Standalone movies, we just got to accept are standalone movies. They try to come up with little flimsy excuses. Thor, off-world. You know, Doctor Strange, not available. I mean, they can do that, but ultimately, we just got to understand that in these stupid big shared cinematic universes, that you got to be able to have standalone films. And not every time that there's a problem that all the Avengers will come and help. So it's just something we got to accept. It's just something we got to accept. And then Chris writes, are the Avengers too much in flux now? No, I think it was just that it's a solo movie. So they didn't bring everybody else rushing. And again, there are going to be other solo films where something comes like, why didn't the rest of the Avengers show up? Because it's a solo movie. You know, I think we just got to accept that. Ahmad Ismail writes, I just want to know what the F happens next. I know, right? Of course, when you have a post-credit scene like that, everybody feels very impatient, including me, including you, clearly, Ahmad. We feel very impatient. We want to know, wait a minute, but we are years away. I have a feeling in an upcoming MCU film, we will find out what happens. Probably Shang-Chi, or maybe Black Panther 2, or maybe Doctor Strange 2. Not Eternals, not Black Widow, because Black Widow's a prequel. But I think we'll find out what happens anecdotally or through like a conversation what happens with Spider-Man. But we might have to wait a little while. All right, Suthius writes, hey, Mr. Campea, I wonder what happened between Talos and Carol for him to say, don't invoke her name when Peter mentioned Captain Marvel. I really think everybody, honestly, I've been seeing people online too. I think everybody's reading way too much into that. I saw that just as a term of closeness. I didn't see that as some sort of bad thing. I just saw it as a term of closeness. And maybe I'm wrong. I'm just saying as a fan speculating, it's just like, hey, you don't get to say her name. You know, something like that. I think everybody's kind of reading too much into it, to be honest with you. But who knows? Maybe there is a bigger issue there that we don't know about. But obviously Talos loves Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel saved his race. So clearly he's close with her and loves her. And Fury is close with Captain Marvel. So I didn't see it as a big deal. Honestly, I think everybody's trying to read too much into it. But I could be wrong. Suthius follows up and writes, whenever Fury was at the end, wherever Fury was at the end, it could be setting up the MCU's version of S.W.O.R.D. We've discussed that already today. S.H.I.E.L.D. was for the ground threats. S.W.O.R.D. is for space threats. Yeah, and it does make sense. Nick Fury could finally be at the point, it's like, damn, we just had too many extraterrestrial problems. We've got to set up a defense of something like that. S.H.I.E.L.D. takes care of everything on the ground. We take care of things that'll be extraterrestrial. It does look like that's what they're setting up, but we don't know that for sure, so we'll find out soon enough. Bradley Alonso writes, J. Jonah Jameson is effing back? Maybe. Again, it's not a popular thing to say, but I have a feeling this might have been a one-time, one-shot cameo. I don't know that J. Jonah Jameson is going to become a regular character moving forward. I have a feeling it was just for the post-credit. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. But I'll tell you what. Even if he is just there for just one post-credit scene, worth it. Totally worth it, in my opinion. Even if we never see him again, to me, it was totally worth it. All right. Suthius writes, I'm seeing some people are confused about the blip, that it replaces the decimation. The blip was referring to the return of people, correct? I don't think it's referring to the return of, I think the entire thing is being referred to as the blip. Now, I'll have to go back and watch again, but I don't think the blip is just referring to the return. I think the blip is the entire incident. I think. I didn't give too much thought to it watching the movie either time. I'll have to go back again, Suthius, and check it out. But my impression is just that their name, everybody's general name for the entire incident of the snap, the decimation, whatever, is referred to as the blip. That's what it sounded like to me. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe you're right. Maybe that's just about the return, but I think it's about the whole incident. I could be wrong, though. Go talk to your local Army recruiter. Kevin Brown writes, Spider-Man is Peter Parker. Parker is going to need a special lawyer to protect him from those accusations. Maybe a kind of blind lawyer. Again, no, they're not going to go in that direction. And this is all going to be resolved by the time the next Spider-Man movie starts. So I could see that, but it's a bit of a stretch. So no, they're not going Daredevil. Remember too, this movie was all planned out long before the Fox and Disney thing was, so it's not like they did this planning to bring in Matt Murdock at this point. They haven't even started really working on that stuff, so I think it's unlikely. Anything, especially in the MCU, Kevin, is possible. But I think that thing is kind of unlikely. But clearly, from the previous questions, clearly you are not alone in that suspicion. Kevin Brown also follows up with, Harry, Norman, nor Oscorp were even hinted at, of course, because they can't. If they didn't do it now, I'm certain we won't get anything Osborn or Green Goblin for a couple of years. I wouldn't say it's a certainty. Remember, now that they have them, here's the problem. We don't know what Sony is planning. These all belong to Sony. If Sony wants to use Oscorp, Harry, Norman, or whatever, if Sony wants to use them in the Venomverse, then the MCU can't use them. The only thing that's covered in their deal is Spider-Man himself and whoever else Sony allows them to use. Now, I'm not saying Sony is going to use, the Osborns or Oscorp or anything. I'm not saying they're going to use them. But right now, we don't know what their plan is. And if Sony is planning, but it's Sony's call. It's not Marvel's decision. It's Sony's call. And so we got to find out first what Sony is planning, and then maybe we'll find out they are going to let the MCU use them and they'll work them in their own good time. But listen, Spider-Man has a huge rogues gallery. Maybe the second best rogues gallery other than Batman's in the entire comic book world. So there's a lot of stories they can tell before getting to the Osborns. So we'll have to wait and see. But again, you're not wrong about it being at least a couple of years, because we're not going to get another Spider-Man for at least a couple of years. So it's going to be a while. Kevin follows up with, I think Fury was on the Sword space station. Again, I think there's a lot there that speaks to that. It's possible it's something else entirely. He could be on a different mission deep in space for all we know. But I think there's enough there that at least makes it not ridiculous to think that this could be a Sword operation. We'll find out for sure. Kevin also follows up again with, how long do you think the Skrulls were filling in for Fury and Hill? After all, Hill did call Fury by his first name, Nick, in Infinity War. Again, there has been a number of times Nick's been referred to as Nick, so we don't have to worry about that. I think everything in the movie just points towards the fact that it's only been a couple of weeks. I really don't think it's been long. I think it's actually been a pretty short period of time. Suthius writes, Aldrich, Killian's Mandarin, Ultron, and now Mysterio were all villainous products of Tony. Yep. I wonder if we'll see any more in the future. Well, I mean, you could also say Vulture was as well, if you go back to the beginning of Homecoming. So I hope not. Look, I'm fine with there being a lot of fallout and repercussions from Tony's actions and Iron Man and all that kind of stuff. But at some point, you can't keep going back to that well. I really, really hope that the next Spider-Man villain is not yet another Tony Stark, someone with a grudge against Tony Stark. I really hope they go into a different direction now. And it's time to start bringing in more of the traditional rogues gallery from Spider-Man, I'm thinking, but who knows? We'll see where the whole universe is by the time the next movie comes around. Suthius follows up again with, aren't you glad there is actually no multiverse in play? I absolutely am. If they do go full multiverse, I'm thinking it'll be more related to Strange's movies. Possible. Now, look, what we do know is that there are some other dimensions because of the events of Infinity War and Endgame. But the whole classic, there's 5,000 different Earths, and that's been put away, at least for now. You know me. I think time travel and multiverse stuff is the bottom of the barrel lazy man storytelling. Like ultimate bottom of the barrel lazy man storytelling. So I'm just as happy for them to sweep all that stuff away. But yes, I was very happy to find out that Robert Meyer Burnett was right, that the whole Mysterio, this is Earth 616, I'm from Earth 8, whatever it was. I'm glad for, at least for now, that's been debunked. But it doesn't mean it's not going to be brought up again later. So I don't know. I'm not going to get too excited. Ryan Lohner writes, apparently the Skrulls didn't think the multiverse stuff was a dead giveaway, so it's still possible it exists. I don't think the Skrulls not thinking it's a big deal, I don't think that speaks to it at all. I don't think that speaks to it in any way, shape, or form. So yeah, I don't think it has any meaning to it. I don't think it has any repercussions of it. Of course, it's something they could explore still later. Like I just said that in the previous question. It is something that could come up again later, but I'm just happy that for now it's done. And I really hope they don't do it. Because again, to me, time travel, multi-dimension stuff, bottom of the barrel, lazy man writing. I really hope they move away from that crap in the MCU moving forward. But they very well could bring it back in a very strong way. We'll have to wait and see. Jerome Smith II writes, we know Fury is on the spaceship. Talos is on Earth. So you mean to tell me Maria Hill is the one who's been a Skrull the entire time in the MCU? No, not at all. I think this is a case where everybody's thinking too much, like trying to read too much into it. I think Maria Hill is clearly with him on the space station. Just because we didn't see her in the post-credit scene, I think it's clear she's on the space station. So, she got snapped, they came back, blah. There we go. I really don't think it's anything more than that. I really don't. Could be wrong, but at this point, I don't think there's anything more than that. All right, DC Patience writes, is Mysterio better than Killmonger or Red Skull? No to either. Again, you're talking about, other than Thanos and Loki, you're talking about probably the two strongest MCU villains. I thought Mysterio was great. I thought Gyllenhaal was fantastic. Personally, now this will be up to individual interpretation, DC, obviously. But personally, I think both Killmonger and Red Skull were better villains. That's not casting shade at Mysterio. Mysterio was still a great villain. I loved him in this movie, but I think Killmonger and Red Skull were probably better. Evelyn writes, do we now call it the blip, or is it still the snap? Well, I'm never going to call it the blip. To me, it's the snap. But to the people living in Earth in the MCU, their terminology for it is the blip. That's fine. So we're probably going to hear people in the movies refer to it as the blip from now on. But as for me, and probably you, we'll probably always refer to it as the snap, or the snapping, or whatever, or the decimation, whatever. But I think from now on in the movies, it's going to be called the blip. Suthius writes, Jake had some Nightcrawler 2014 flavor in him. I don't know about that. I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, other than the fact that he was evil, I guess, but I don't personally see a lot of similarities, other than the fact that he was evil. I don't see a lot of similarities outside of that, but that's just me. My God, though, how good was he in Nightcrawler? All right, Snake Jerusalem writes, Mysterio's plan is a Thanatos gambit. How could he be so pure, Peter would decide to give him Edith? This is really lazy writing. I am disappointed. Well, again, to me, I did have an issue, particularly the second time I saw the movie, with Peter, and I get it, he's a high school kid and he's still a little dumb, but he's smart. to just go, oh, I've talked to you 3 times. I'll hand over one of the most advanced pieces of technology in the world that somebody left to me, and I'm just going to give it to somebody else that I've spoken with 3 times. I did have an issue with that. Like, if he really thought somebody else should have had it, why didn't he go find Scott Lang? Why didn't he go find Bruce Banner, Hulk, who was clearly a close friend of Tony Stark's? Why didn't he give it to Happy? Why didn't he give it to Happy? Why didn't he give it to Pepper? Like, there were so many other people that even Peter Parker as a high school student would have known better, that it would have been a safer bet to pass these off to, other than a guy he's had 3 conversations with. So I did have a problem with that, Snake. I agree. Matthew Fisher writes, Mendelsohn in school at end of Endgame confirmed. Mendelsohn in school at end of Endgame confirmed. I'm not really sure where you're going with that, Fish. Sorry, dude. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. Baby Boy 8603 writes, J.K. Simmons, yes, again, biggest pop that everybody got. It's unfortunate that the biggest pop of your movie has to come in the post-credit, but it was just so good that it got everybody so damn excited, Baby Boy. All right, Suthius writes, whoever Dimitri was, I want to see more of him. Dimitri was great. A lot of people are thinking that's Chameleon because Chameleon's real name in the comic books is Dimitri, so people thought that maybe this is Dimitri. This is Chameleon. I know Rob thought it was Chameleon. I wasn't sure it was. I doubted it was, but there was certainly a possibility. But I loved it. I mean, seriously, one of the best laughs of the movie was then they came out saying, look at our cool new ride. And it's Dimitri there with the sign. Come on, that was hilarious. I really did like him in this movie. Darian Boyd writes, CG was a bit flat for me, but it was justified because the scientists in the movie were doing the CG, not our real life animators. Still a great film. You know what, Darian? I'm going to disagree with you on that. I thought the CG was really quite great. Because look, when you're talking about trying to make a monster look like he's made out of and encompassed entirely by water, I don't know that I've ever seen better. Like, I thought it looked pretty damn great. And remember, the scientists in the movie have to do even better. They have to make everybody believe that what they're seeing is real, not on a movie screen, but they're convincing the actual people living in this world that what they're seeing in front of their own eyes is real. And so I respect that maybe you looked at it and didn't quite work for you. That's cool. I mean, it's subjective, right? I mean, what you see and what I see may be different things. But for me, I actually thought it was really, really good. I thought it was quite sharp. So I'm going to disagree with you a little bit on that one, but I'm sure probably a lot of people agree with you as well. I've actually read online some people thought the CGI in the movie was a little bit questionable. So you're not alone. But I actually thought it worked quite well. But that's just me. All right. Suthius writes, we've seen aliens and gods and whatnot, but the idea of the elementals were a little too fantastical for me. I'm glad they ended up as just illusions. I'm glad they ended up as illusions too. It was a bit of a stretch. But again, it's hard to feel like it's a bit of a stretch because of exactly what you just said. We've been engaged with alien civilizations and Norse gods and, you know, all these things that we buy into no problem. But elementals we have a problem with? Still, it does seem a little bit comic booky, and they were just a little aside to the story for sure. And I'm with you though. I'm kind of glad it worked out that way. Zombitron 5678 writes, I love the movie, but didn't like how the public in here thinks Spider-Man is the last hero. I mean, what about Clint, Rhodey, Sam, Wanda, Scott, Black Panther? Oh, I know. I'm with you at that, but this was not their movie, right? This is a Spider-Man movie. So they're focusing on Spider-Man. And this, again, is what we always said for years now. Problem with the shared cinematic universe is that the audience is always going to go, why didn't everybody else show up? I mean, right? But we just got to accept that they're not. And I was cool with it. Like, I was fine that they didn't mention, you know, Clint or Rhodey or Sam or Wanda or Scott or Black Panther or whoever else. I'm totally fine that they didn't mention them. Because this is Spider-Man's solo movie. The constant references to Tony was important to the narrative, so I'm fine with that, even though I don't like that they're making him Spider-Man Jr. But yeah, I see where you're coming from, Zombitron. Totally dig where you're coming from. Curtis Lopez writes, there was an earthquake yesterday during my second viewing. I was in Dolby 2, 4D experience. There you go. Yeah, Ann and I, we actually decided to go out for dinner, and we went into Glendale, which is a part of LA. Glendale is right beside Burbank. So we went into Glendale, California. We're having dinner on this great outdoor patio in Glendale. And we're sitting on the patio having this beautiful meat and cheese platter. And all of a sudden, the heat lamps start shaking. And then we look across at the public library, this big, gorgeous public library, and the windows are shaking and the street lights are shaking. It's like, we're having another earthquake. And it was stronger than the last one. It was a little freaky. Yesterday's was definitely the strongest one I've ever felt in LA. And I was worried because remember the earthquake on Friday, was it? No, the earthquake on Thursday knocked a bunch of stuff in my studio down. So we're coming home from our dinner. I'm just going, oh, please don't have everything fallen over and crashed in my office again. But thankfully came back. Everything was in place. Everything was fine. No more damage to the studio. That would have been a trip being in a movie theater thinking, is this a 4DX experience? And it's actually an earthquake. Hopefully you got to finish your movie though, man. Suthius writes, was hoping to see Pepper have a talk. I agree. I would just finish saying that it's Spider-Man's movie. You don't have to bring everybody else in. It probably would have been nice to see Pepper have a conversation with them. That would have been nice. And I think that would have fit narratively too, right? Because, yeah, Hap and Tony were best friends, but Pepper was his wife. And it would have been nice. I'm totally good with that. They didn't, though. I'm totally good with it, but it would have been a nice little spot. I'm Upset writes, still think a Venom Spidey crossover is possible? Oh, it's still possible. It's still possible. Like when you get Kevin Feige saying he thinks it's likely that it'll eventually happen, you got to at least say it's possible. Likely? I don't know. Probable? I don't know. Possible? Absolutely. Suthius writes, when the kids got picked up at the airport, how do we know Eddie Brock didn't also land at the same airport just that day? Just saying there's a possibility. I mean, but then you could say anything, right? How do you know that Batman wasn't actually in the car behind Aunt May's car? How do you know? How do you know? It's possible. Could have been Bruce Wayne in the car behind him. How do you know Aquaman wasn't also swimming under the water when the water elemental showed up and he was thinking he was trying to battle under the water? It's possible. I mean, yeah, so you can say that, but is it likely? No, it's very unlikely. If they were going to say that he was there, they would have showed him. So I think it's unlikely. Possible, sure. But it's possible that Bruce Wayne was at the airport too. Possible. For all we knew, DC and Marvel made an agreement and they could say that Bruce Wayne was there. So unlikely. The Chum Bucket writes, let's see, where are we at here? The action was awesome, absolutely. The illusion scenes were so intense. End credits felt a little weird to me, but overall, thoroughly enjoyed it. Want to go again. And I've already been to it again. I'm going to go see it at least one or two more times. I think the action, not the best Spider-Man movie overall, but I think the best action we've ever had in a Spider-Man movie. The illusion scenes were visually very impressive. I liked them a lot. And I love the end credits. To me, best parts of the movie, particularly the mid-credit scene, best part of the movie. The important thing, though, is overall, as a movie, it really worked. It was really fun. And I'm looking forward to seeing it again, Chum Bucket. Chum also follows up and writes, when I sat down to watch Far From Home, I realized I hadn't seen a standalone Spider-Man film in theaters since Spider-Man 2 15 years ago. Crazy. So clearly you saw Into the Spider-Verse at home. You saw Homecoming at home. What a great one to come back to. Would have been even better if you saw Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse in theaters. That's the best Spider-Man movie of all time, in my opinion. But this is a good one to come back to. Sounds like you had a good time, Chum Bucket, and I'm glad that you did, sir. Josh Harris writes, Peter MJ made for a good love story. Also, fucking Brad. I know again. But again, I really want you guys to think about this. Look at what having the Brad character in the movie allowed them to do narratively surrounding everything else, right? It was a brilliant addition. Narratively, that Brad character was a brilliant addition. And I'm with you. I don't like romance in my comic book movies, but to me, seriously, the Peter and MJ stuff really, really worked, and I enjoyed it a lot. Actor Friend 90 writes, wonder why Fury didn't invoke the name to Peter when he asked about Captain Marvel. I thought Talos was grateful to her for her help. Again, I think everybody's reading too much into that. I really do. I think everybody's adding meaning onto that when he said, don't invoke her name. That didn't sound to me like he hated her. It sounded to me like you're not worthy to say her name, Peter. That's what it sounded like to me. It didn't sound antagonistic. It didn't say like, don't say that name, she's horrible. It was more like, you're not worthy of saying her name. That's what it came across to me as. And everybody's supposed to know that Fury and her have a really good close relationship. So to me, it made sense. Again, I just think a lot, and I could be wrong about this. I could be 100% wrong about this, absolutely. But my sense watching it was that it really didn't mean anything. It was more of a term of endearment. It was a statement of endearment. I didn't sense anything negative from it, and I think people are reading too much into it. I could be wrong, could be 100% wrong, but that's how I kind of read it. Angry Irish Benjamin writes, Mysterio being the bad guy, not surprising. Mysterio being the brainchild of a gaggle of disgruntled former employees of Tony's, definitely surprising. Yeah, it was a little bit much. It got brought up earlier that having a whole, like going around and collecting up a whole bunch of people that are disgruntled Stark employees, interesting. The fact that all of them were perfectly fine with borderline genocide, with wiping out like hundreds of thousands of people and just killing children and men and women, and like that was a concept that warranted further exploration, I think. The fact that all of them were absolute homicidal maniacs, that was something that warranted further whatever. But again, didn't pull me out of the movie, but it is something that a better movie, a deeper movie would have explored a little bit to get us to that point. But still, hey, it was what it was. Angry Irish follows up with, is it just me, or do these MCU Spider-Man movies really like making full use of the broader continuity to fill out their plots and reference pools? I think merely more than anything else, they're just taken advantage of. For example, saying that the illusion technology that Stark exhibited in Spider-Man Civil War, or in Captain America Civil War, is connected to the illusion technology that Mysterio is using here. I think that was an afterthought. I don't think it's like, let's build something where that stuff Tony used before is the main thing. No, I think they came up with the plot and then said, you know what, we could connect this to that. And I thought it was more of an afterthought than a primary thing. But I do like the way they show how it's all connected. It's not brilliant or deep or anything like that, but it's fun. It's fun to see that. It's fun that they got, Christmas Story Kid back as the guy who, was working on that one technology. It's fun that they brought back these other people who were connected at different points throughout the movie. It's fun that they do that. And it makes it feel like a more fleshed out world. I don't think there's anything particularly genius about it. I think you could have thought it up. I think I could have thought that up. But it's fun that they do it, and I think it's a good move. All right, Daniel Fitzpatrick writes, love seeing J.K. Simmons back. Absolutely, brother. Absolutely love seeing him again. Biggest pop in the audience. And it's funny that this one quick cameo not only gets the biggest pop, but it's also what more of you guys are wanting to talk about, right? It just goes to prove the point. That's how effective it was. That's what most people want to talk about, is the J.K. Simmons thing. Jared's Reviews writes, the last 30 to 40 minutes of this movie might be my favorite parts of any Spider-Man movie. The cinematography was beautiful and also looked badass. It looked really good. The action was great. Not my favorite part. Also, one other big problem comes from a really nice scene where the battle is now over, and Peter is on the bridge, and MJ comes running out of the bridge to him, right? And they have that conversation. Nice moment, nice scene. Except for this one big glaring problem. He's standing there, out in the open, on this bridge, where this major event just happened, so there's probably like 5,000 video cameras around town pointed at this bridge. And he's just standing there with his mask off, in the open, just talking to MJ. That to me is like, really? So we're just going to pretend like nobody else is going to see this? Like nobody else in this city has got some, zoomed in lens pointed at this bridge where all this action just happened? We're just going to pretend that nobody notices this, and Peter doesn't even think about it? Just standing out there in the open, mask off, la 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 la. Again, not a big deal. Who cares? But I remember that did stand out to me a little bit. But yeah, great action in that last. There's a great last. Not my favorite 30 to 40 minutes of any Spider-Man movie, but a totally solid one, and really, really good, and end of the movie on a really good bang, Jared's. Raymond Verrata writes, JK is the best. I rewatched all of J. Jonah videos For the Spider-Man verse sequel, Philip Lord said they will include Japanese Spider-Man if they hit 200,000. I don't know what he means by that, by hit 200,000. But that means they probably already planned. Look, I guarantee you, that's BS. They're already planning on it. If they're saying that, they're already planning on it. Because getting 200,000 votes, whatever, they know they're going to get it. So that means they're giving the illusion, speaking of Mysterio, they're giving the illusion that the public actually has a say when really they're going to do it. And now they're just making it look like people have a vote in it, which is perfectly fine. I don't care. I got to see the next one. Because Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is still the best Spider-Man movie ever made. You may or may not agree, but that's my thoughts on it. All right, Carlos writes, now we know why Fury's eye patch was on the wrong eye. Nope, in the movie, it was always on the right eye. Remember that. In the movie itself, it was always on the correct eye. Because I looked for that. I looked like, do they ever have a scene where he's got the patch on the wrong eye? And just to show that the Samuel Jackson thing was a part of a promo. But I looked for it, and it's like, as far as I could tell, unless I'm wrong, he always had the patch on the right eye in the movie. Ryan Lohner writes, you'd think all this time on the trapeze would prepare Zendaya for web slinging. Of course, it's a good reference there, Ryan. That is a reference, of course, to Zendaya being in The Greatest Showman, in which she was a flying trapeze artist. Love her in that movie, by the way. And again, I was not a big Zendaya fan in Spider-Man Homecoming. I'm a big Zendaya fan now. I thought she was great in this movie. I'm looking forward to see how they evolve this character even more. James Bonner writes, I love Happy's candor while speaking to Peter about Tony. He knew the man behind the armor. Yeah, that was a really nice scene, actually. And a movie like this needs a few scenes like that are just, no, let's make it real. Let's get heart to heart. Let's just make it about character here. And that conversation, he goes, look, I knew Tony better than anybody. You know who doubted Tony? Nobody doubted themselves more than Tony. He second-guessed him. He didn't even trust himself. He always second-guessed everything he did. And I thought that conversation was one of the most poignant and maybe one of the most important conversations in the movie. And it brought it back. And because having things like that, it's important. You always hear me talk about changing gears. Not only does the cinematic universe need to change gears, a movie in and of itself needs to change gears. Because if you don't, it becomes monotonous. And this was a good movie that was a good example of changing gears. And that one scene is a great example of that. And I really like that. I thought that was one of the more important scenes in the entire movie. Anthony R. writes, Jake played the role perfect. And the illusions were straight out of the cartoon/animated series. I'm running out of ways to describe how great Jake was in this, Anthony. I got to totally agree with you on that. He was wonderful. Both as the sympathetic superhero that he plays himself off to be in the beginning, and as the crazy maniacal villain that he plays himself off in the second half of the film. He played both great, and I can't agree with you more on that, Anthony. Absolutely, he was wonderful. Donaldo Martinez writes, when theaters re-release older movies from the 80s and 90s, do those numbers still count towards the overall box office, even though, well, Donaldo, we're here to talk about Spider-Man Far From Home, not general questions. But I will say this, generally speaking, when you re-release a movie, it does count towards the movie's overall box office. If people pay money to buy a ticket to go see it, doesn't matter when it comes out, it counts towards its box office. All right, Anthony R. follows up and writes, Mysterio is alive. I don't think so. I think Quentin somehow pulled another illusion. He probably hacked Edith, so when Peter asked if he was really dead, she says yes. I don't think so. But again, here's the thing. This is, to your point, Anthony, this is the Marvel Cinematic Fake Death Universe. So it's totally possible. It ain't like Marvel never done anything like this before. But honestly, I really think, and I'm not basing this on any insider knowledge. This is just me as a fan speculating like you. I think he's done. I don't think we're going to see him again. But again, it is the Marvel Cinematic Fake Death Universe, so you very well could be right, Anthony. You very well could be right. Let's see here. Anthony writes up again. The sequel can go many ways. 1, people believe that Peter is Spidey and he is in real danger. 2, people think it's fake news and laugh it off. And again, I don't even think they're going to explore it. I'm going to think this whole thing gets resolved before the next movie starts. We got 4 or 5 movies between now and the next Spider-Man movie. We don't even know when the next Spider-Man movie is coming. It's going to be years away. So I don't know. And I think you're right. It's one of those two things. But I think one of those two things will be resolved by the time we get to the next movie. But unless there's a third option, but I think it is one of those two things, Anthony. I think you're bang on the money on that. James Bonner writes, kudos to Gyllenhaal. When I went into the movie knowing that he was probably going to turn out as a bad guy, it still threw me off in that bar scene when his true ambitions finally came out. I'm telling you what, if you were not already convinced, because it's Mysterio, if you were not already convinced and knew that Mysterio's a villain, they're going to have the turn, he's going to be the bad guy, Jake Gyllenhaal's performance could have fooled you. He played, and it's not just Jake Gyllenhaal, it's the people who wrote the damn movie. They wrote that script in such a way that his character comes off completely as a hero. And as a really cool guy too. You know what one of my favorite lines from him is? It's when Peter meets him for the second time. And he says, Mr. Beck, and he interrupts and goes, my name's Mysterio. I loved that. And the little wink to Peter, because Peter's the one who came up with the name, right? It was great. I love the way they played. And if we didn't already know, James, the script and the performance would have totally fooled a lot of people. And there were some people fooled. Even some people who already know that Mysterio's a villain may have been shocked, like maybe they are making him the hero. You know what the dead giveaway was, though? The dead giveaway that they weren't going to play him to be a hero was that the final bad guy got beaten only a little over halfway through the movie. It's like, oh, well then clearly there's another, here comes the Mysterio twist. Like that's the only thing they gave away. But the script and the performance were so good, it would have fooled a lot of people. I think you're bang on the money with that, James. All right, Anthony R. writes, Giacchino's Mysterio score was perfect. It was a really good score overall. It had a Doctor Strange vibe. It started out heroic and after reveal became more menacing. I'll tell you what, Michael Giacchino is one of the best emerging composers out there. And he's getting more and more work and he's doing such a great job. And I look forward to him scoring stuff more often. And look, score is one of the things that DC films have always done better than the Marvel films. But the Marvel scores have been getting better and better and better. It was great in Endgame. I thought it was really solid in Spider-Man Far From Home. And it's a good observation. Good observation, Anthony. All right. Sharon Carter writes, who would win in a fight between Strange and Mysterio? Strange, easy. Real power, illusion. Strange just would have turned him off. Boom. Strange, easy. Wade O'Neill writes, love the film, but have only seen it once so far. When Fury stepped out of that vacation simulator thing, was Sword working on / building anything in particular? Couldn't tell what they were doing. Yeah, who knows? And by the way, we don't know that was Sword. Let's be clear about that, Wade. Right now, we don't know that that's Sword. I'm thinking there's enough anecdotal evidence to suggest that it might be a Sword project. That could be it. That's the way I lean personally. But keep in mind that we don't know that that's the case. It could have been something completely different. But my speculation right now is that Fury, who was instrumental in helping Captain Marvel save the Skrulls, called upon the Skrulls to help him put together a global defense system, a intergalactic version of S.H.I.E.L.D., if you will, Sword, and that's what I do think is going on. We don't know that for sure, but I am with you in the fact that I think that's what's going on. So I think it's some sort of Sword project. Specifically what it was, they never really gave any indication. We'll find out. Maybe it's just an observation post. It might be, what is the name of it? There's, in the comics, they have Sword is based out of an orbiting space station. And it's got a name, and I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. But the name of the space station actually comes into play in Secret Wars, but we're not going to get into that. But it very well could be that. Maybe something else. Maybe not even Sword related, but that's what I think. That's where I'm at right now, Wade. So you and me are on the same page there. Joe Garcia just sends in a super chat. Thank you so much, Joe. Dominic Francis writes, Mysterio illusion scene blew my mind. So creative. Also love Peter's use of his spidey senses at the end. That was pretty cool, actually. I really did like that. Felt like real Spider-Man without Stark tech. Yes. Yes. And that's why I love that so much. Because instead of using an Iron Man suit and technology to do it, he used a Spider-Man power to do it. He uses his Spidey sense, the Peter tingle. And yes, I did love that because it was Spider-Man doing the thing, not Iron Man Jr. doing it. Again, I hope he gets to the point where he has to realize Tony would want me to be my own man and not use Stark tech and be Iron Man Jr. I hope they get back that, because you're right, man. That was one of the best things about that. I love that scene because of that. Garrett Couch writes, where are we at here? Yeah. That first Mysterio confrontation was trippy, and I can't recall a more higher stakes credit scene, and Spider-Man swinging with MJ looked actually real. You know what? I didn't think it looked all that real. To me, it looked like they were just two actors standing there with a big fan in their face. I didn't think it looked all that real, to be honest with you. But it still looked good. Beyond that, you're right. There's never been look again, a lot of the MCU post-credit stuff has no impact at all. It's just for fun, right? Just a fun little thing to show. Like the Grandmaster at the end of Thor Ragnarok, just fun. Sometimes they have one big impact thing, revealing something. This one had 3 big pow moments. You know, pow moment number 1, the best one, J.K. Simmons' J. Jonah. Pow moment number 2, Spider-Man has been framed for the attacks in London. Pow moment number 3, Peter gets his identity revealed to the world. It was like boom, boom, boom. We've never had a post-credit scene in the MCU do that. It was the most relevant, important post-credit scene they've ever done. It was fantastic and got the biggest pop out of everybody. All right. Let's see here. Do It for Cash writes, love that Mysterio was another villain who felt spurned by Stark like Vulture. It gives their beef with Spidey depth and shows how Tony's choices have consequences even after his death. Yeah, to some degree. I just think, how many times are you going to do it? I mean, everything you just described, it gives beef with Spidey, blah, blah, blah. Okay, you did that with Vulture. Did you have to do it again with Mysterio? No, okay. Twice coincidence, but they shouldn't do it again. I think they really shouldn't do it again. I think they should now let it go. I mean, that's fine. That's fine that you've done it once. It's even fine that you've done it twice. But now it's time to let it go. Whenever you get around to doing the next Spider-Man movie, do not make it another person who is spurned by Tony and is angry at Tony, because then it's just too much. I thought they could have done it without it. Let's put it this way. I don't think Mysterio being a disgruntled Stark employee or a guy who's pissed off at Tony hurt the movie. I don't think it hurt the movie at all. But I also think they could have done it a different way. But it is what it is, and I'm still good with it. I'm still cool with it. But they shouldn't do it again. They should not go back to that well again. Maybe you feel differently. Maybe there's a lot of you guys who feel differently, but I feel like, okay, you've now gone to that well as many times as you can go. Don't have it now in the next movie where Kingpin used to be another partner that Tony had at one point, and now he's not, and he's rich. You know, just don't do it again. Just don't do it again. That's all I'm asking for. Do it for cash. It's just that I just don't want them to do it again. All right. Royce Freeman writes, I bet you loving the fact that they recast Jameson with the same actor from before. Oh, I am. Look, I would have been totally good if they brought in a J. Jonah Jameson and it was somebody else. Would have been totally fine with it. But I've been saying for years, this is one of the only times I would accept bringing an actor who's already played the role in a different incarnation and bringing them back for a reboot, was J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah. And so, yes, I was very happy with it, Royce. I'm not going to lie to you, buddy. I was very, very happy with it. As it appears, most people were, and I bet you were too. All right. John Durig writes, in Captain Marvel, Fury says that no one calls him Nick, but in Avengers and Spider-Man Far From Home, Agent Hill calls him Nick. Has Talos and his wife been Fury and Hill the entire time? No, not at all. And besides, I really think like there were a number of times that that's been called into question, that whole thing. So no, I think that's reading too much into it. I've already kind of established. I think that's reading way too much into it. I think everything in that final conversation establishes that he had only been there for a short period of time. I believe I think the movie made it pretty clear it's only been a couple of weeks, but I could be wrong about that. I'm not sitting here telling you like, Kevin Feige told me it's only been for a few weeks. No. I'm just fan speculating like everybody else. So you could be right and I could be wrong. Totally. But where I'm at right now, having seen the movie twice, I'm like, nothing indicates that it's been anything longer than a couple of weeks. Like when you hear their conversation and everything, nothing indicates that it's been anything more than just a couple of weeks. So no, I don't think so. And I don't think that whole Nick conversation, I don't think that means anything. I really don't. Because we've heard Black Widow refer to him as Nick too. So I really don't think there's anything more to it than that. And by the way, we heard Captain America refer to him as Nick before too. So it's happened. It's not like it's unprecedented. So I don't think so. I think it's only been standing in for him for a few weeks. All right. Carter 2480 writes, since the Skrulls are working with Fury, can't one of them disguise, this has been brought up a few times already, can't one of them disguise themselves as Peter so him and Spider-Man can be at the same place together? Yep, that is something they could do, and it might even be something they say happened whenever the next Spider-Man movie picks up. Again, I think that whole problem that they introduced in the post-credit scene is going to be resolved off camera before we even get to the next Spider-Man movie. Could be wrong about that, but that could be one of the excuses they use to say is how they resolve the problem. That they just sent a Skrull to look like Peter while Spider-Man was actually standing beside him. That's definitely a way they could do it. But either way, I think it's going to be something that's going to be done off movie. By the time we get to the next Spider-Man movie, everything's already going to be resolved. We've seen Marvel do that before. Could be wrong. I'm just saying we've seen them do it before, so it would make sense. Froygon Jin writes, in the first line of the movie, Maria Hill calls Fury Nick. Should have remembered the reference from Captain Marvel. Again, I don't think that means anything. We have heard other characters refer to him as Nick before. I think that's reading way too much into it, and I think everything in the movie points to the fact that they've only been there for a little bit. Gagan Palia writes, why Fury says don't invoke her name about Captain Marvel. Again, I think it's just because that was kind of the thing. It's like, you're not worthy of saying her name. I don't think there's anything more to it than that. I really don't. Luis Blanco writes, oh, sorry guys, had a jump. Give me a second here. How far back do we have to go? We have to go back. Okay, that was John Durig. There we go. All right, Luis Blanco writes. Yes, Luis Blanco writes, in the Infinity War post-credits, Maria Hill calls Nick Fury Nick 3 times. Were they Skrulls back then too, or am I overthinking it? Well, since I've already addressed the question like 6 or 7 times, yeah, I think you're overthinking it. Again, I could be wrong. I don't know that for a fact. Let's be clear about that. This is just me as a fan giving my fan speculation. I'm just saying, from my point of view, they've made it pretty clear. Nick's name has been used as Nick before. It's not unique. And I think the end of the movie, that post-credit scene, the conversation makes it pretty clear. It's only been for a short period of time. So I think overthinking it a bit. But listen, that's what we do, right? Every time anything happens in a Marvel movie, we all jump all over possible theories, right? And 95% of the time, we're always overthinking it. And I think this is one of those times. Again, never know. You never know. But I'm going to lean towards, I think everybody's overthinking that too much or trying to make it feel like it's something different. Nate Piacentino writes, loved it. Tom is the GOAT and so happy JJJ is back. Now, again, I'm not sure he's back. I still suspect, only suspect, but I still suspect that this JK's cameo was a one-time thing. Hope I'm wrong, but we'll see. And Tom is a great Spider-Man. I love him as Spider-Man. He did such a good job in this movie. Christopher Benson just sends in a super chat. Thank you, Christopher. Dante Redgrave writes, connecting Beck to Tony's hologram experiment in Civil War was genius and really brings Phase 3 full circle. Truly masterful storytelling. I think it was an afterthought, to be honest with you. I don't think it's masterful storytelling at all. Who imagined that tiny scene in CW would be so crucial later? Again, I think it's inconsequential. I really do. I think even if that scene in Civil War didn't happen, this is still the story they do in this movie. I don't think it was all constructed around that. I think that's what they came up with, and then they just figured, oh, you know what, we could connect it to that. I really don't think it's masterful story. This wasn't Shakespeare. This wasn't all that deep. I don't think so at any rate. I don't think it was all that masterful. I don't think it was all that deep. I think it was a fun coincidental thing that they were able to connect it to, and that's great. And it's fun when they do that. And it's cool that they do that. But yeah, I don't think it was some master stroke. I don't think it's masterful storytelling. This isn't a Godfather 3 sort of scenario. It's It was fun. It was cool that they did that. It's a nice little trip, but you could have come up with that. I could have come up with that. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. I don't think so at any rate. But it was still good that they did it, and it was fun, and it set up the beginning of a really cool sequence of things, like the flashback to that with Gyllenhaal in off stage, the part from Iron Man 1, the part, them doing that was fun, but masterful story writing, I got to disagree with you on that. I think it was a fun little thing that anybody could have come up with. They did smarter things in this movie. They did do smarter things in this movie. I don't think that one thing was a shining example, but that's just my opinion. That's just how I saw it. I thought it was a fun little thing. I don't see that as masterful storytelling myself personally. Doesn't mean you shouldn't. I'm just saying that's kind of how I saw it. All right. Michael Effin Sotelo writes, do you think Talos in Phase 4 could have a similar role as Coulson in Phase 1, popping up in different films, doing small missions? That's a possibility. That's a possibility. They could definitely, kind of hijack on that and use that and kind of have him be a reoccurring presence that pops up here and there whenever he's needed. Could be. I don't think that's the biggest stretch. I don't think that's a far-fetched notion. That definitely could be in the cards there. We'll have to wait and see. I like the thinking. I didn't even consider that, but you know what? The more I'm thinking about it now, the more I'm thinking, yeah, you could use Talos in that sort of a way if you wanted to. But then again, we'll find out. We'll find out as the movies progress. All right, Derek Woodrin sends in a really big super chat. Thank you for that, Derek. Appreciate that, man. Who writes, love that the post-credit scene fixed issues I had with Fury. Would have been hard to imagine Fury getting tricked so easily. Can't wait to see how Peter deals with everyone knowing his identity and thinking he is a bad guy. Well, a couple of things there, Derek. Number one, it still doesn't explain anything to me, because anybody who works for S.H.I.E.L.D., because there were a lot of people in those bunkers who got to see Beck, could have simply gone, oh, let's just run it through the database, see if we know who he is. That's basic level stuff. Anybody could have thought to do that. Some guy shows up to me and says, I am from an alternate dimension. First thing I'm doing is I'm Googling that shit. And a simple facial recognition would have popped up. Oh, you're a scientist from Stark. Put the cuffs on him. So to me, even that being Talos, a person from a highly advanced, thousands of years more advanced than Earth is, he's not an idiot. He's the leader of his race. I mean, so to me, that does not explain that at all. That's still a problem in the movie. I overlook it, but it's still a problem in the movie, and it doesn't explain that at all. And again, I suspect, Derek, that by the time, however many years down the road it is that we get to the next Spider-Man movie, and remember, it's not coming out next year, it's years away, that this whole thing about his identity, I think this has been fixed. I think it's all been fixed off camera, just like they fixed the Hulk Bruce issue off camera, and by the time we got to Endgame, it's already settled. Oh yeah, hi everybody, I'm Professor Hulk. Wait a minute, how do we get from where we were in Infinity War to this? It just all happened off camera. Big important events that happen off camera. So they have done that before. I think they're going to do it again here. And I don't think that's necessarily a big bad thing. I don't think that is necessarily a big bad thing. I just think it's a thing. And so we'll see. We'll see. It'll be interesting to see how this transpires moving forward, but so much fun. So, and it does raise a lot of possibilities and a lot of speculation we can have. And we'll see how it all kind of unwinds. Anyway, thanks for that, Derek. Appreciate that, man. All right, and Derek follows up with, plus you guessed right about J.K. Simmons, love that part. Okay, yes, but let's not give me too much credit. It's not like I was convinced they were going to do it. I thought it was possible they would do it, yes, but let's not give me the credit as if I called it. Like, I'm telling you right now, it's going to be him. I didn't say that. I thought it was a possibility, but I didn't call it. So I love taking credit, but let's not give me credit for something I didn't actually do. I thought it was a possibility. I think a lot of you guys thought it was a possibility, but it's not like I said, I 100% guarantee you that it's going to be him. I've been communicated to by blah, blah. Let's not give me that much credit. I thought it was possible, but a lot of you guys did too, but how cool was it seeing it actually happen though, right, Derek? It was so cool seeing it happen. All right, Rodney Alexander writes, when will this notion of an all ex-employees of Tony Stark turning into main villains stop? I can't remember if Iron Man 2 bad guy was or was not, but both Spider-Man movies, I hope this doesn't continue. Well, the Iron Man 2 villain, which is of course was Mickey Rourke, was maybe not an employee of Tony, but a guy completely disgruntled with the Starks. Because his father screwed over his father, and now you're rich while I'm not. And it's yet another guy who is just historically disgruntled with Tony Stark. They have gone to that well, and I'm glad you brought that up, Rodney, because I didn't even think about that one. But you're right, Iron Man 2 is another example of it. They have simply gone back to that well too many times. Too many times. We've seen them do it in Tony's movies. We've seen them do it now in Spider-Man movies. It's time to stop going to that well. They've got to move on from that at this point. It worked in Far From Home. Great. It's starting to get a little bit, but it worked. So great. Now move on. Let's not do this thing, people disgruntled with Tony Stark again. Can we please move on from that? Moving forward. All right. Ben Burnside writes, I hated the Iron Spider suit at the beginning. Oh, it looked even worse than it did in I hate the Iron Spider suit. And I know I'm in the minority on that. I know a lot of people love the Iron Spider suit. I thought it looks terrible. And I just hate that it's just Iron Man Jr. So yeah, I'm thank you for being on. I think you and me, Ben, are the only ones that don't like that Iron Spider suit. I think it looks terrible, but whatever. We can be in the minority. I still love the character, still love the movie. I just don't like the damn costume. All right. Rodney Alexander writes, with the Skrulls on Earth, do you think this will be a way to say it was a Skrull that did the snap and Tony is up in space with Fury? No. That narratively, that undoes so much. Because it not only would it have to be a Skrull, but it would have had to have been a Skrull that knew how to do everything with the Iron Man technology. It would have had to have been a Skrull that emotionally loved Tony's kid, and a Skrull that had all of his empathic imperatives and everything about him emotionally. And if they'd pulled that, Rodney, I think it would piss a lot of people off, because it undoes emotionally so much of what they did in the movie. It just would make no sense. So I'm going to say no way they do that. That would be a horrible thing for them to do. And I just don't think they're going to do it. At least I hope they won't. But again, anything is possible with Kevin Feige in the MCU. But I think it would be a really bad move on their part. All right. Ratson King writes, being from the Netherlands, it was very fun to see famous Dutch comedian Joran van, oh my God, Koningsbergie as a soccer hooligan in the Dutch prison. By the way, I love that whole scene. I had a whole bunch of people sending me messages on social media saying, it's like the Netherlands are the European Canadians. It felt like it was a big Canadian thing, to be honest with you. I loved it. The way they're all so nice to him, and then when they're talking about the guard, it's like, he's on the phone. I think he's on the phone with his wife. They're having a baby. No, they're having a baby. And then, the guard yelling, hey, you guys doing okay back there? And the guy locked. It was great. I love that whole scene. I thought that was fantastic. Ben Burnside writes, I 100% think Tony would have did what he did if Spider-Man wasn't around. Oh, I agree. That was a bad line. I get it. That's an adult trying to say something to a kid to assure the kid, but it was a bad line. He says, I don't think Tony would have done. I don't think Tony did what he did because he knew you'd be here. Really? Really? This 16-year-old kid was going to be more important than Dr. Bruce Banner or Doctor Strange or Thor? Please. Yes. Let me finish reading your statement, Ben. I 100% think that Tony would have did what he did if Spider-Man wasn't around. The fate of the world was at stake. Where would you put Venom in the Spider-Man list? Well, that's a separate question. I'm not going to address that. But, I completely agree with you, Ben. That there's no way, oh gosh, I think I can do this snap because Spider-Man, this high school kid, will be here to save the world. No, it wasn't. That wasn't what he was thinking. He was thinking, I'm going to do this to save my kid. I'm going to do this to save my wife. I'm going to do this to save the world. Yes, Tony would have done that. Like, I love Hap, and I love the conversations and the heart-to-heart between Hap, and yeah, absolutely. But Ben, I think you're 100% right. There is no way that that's even remotely true. There is no way that is even remotely true. It's a nice sentimental thing to say to this kid who's struggling, but truth? No, that wasn't truth. No way that was true. All right, Aaron Kin writes, secret identities in the MCU are kind of done, and I like it. Yeah, it is. It's done. There are secret identities in the DCEU, not in the MCU. Peters is the last one, and it's now gone. Everybody knows who Cap is. Everybody knows who Thor is. Everybody knew who Iron Man was. Everybody now knows Scott because of his criminal record and everything. Hawkeye doesn't keep his thing secret. Everybody knows who Black Widow is. And Spider-Man was the last one. And I think you're right. There seems to be done. We'll see if they introduce new ones, like when we get to Shang-Chi, but I don't think they are there either. So we'll see. We'll see. All right. Johnny Wiener writes, I like that name. I enjoyed the movie twice, but it's my least favorite. I'm not a fan of this incarnation of Spidey. I don't like it so much. Homecoming was my least favorite. Now, both close together. By the way, J.K. Back as J. Jonah Jameson is solid. I got to disagree with you, Johnny. I mean, and look, it's all subjective, and if these ones don't work for you all that well, so be it. Your opinion is no less valid than mine. But I definitely think this is better than like Spider-Man 3. This is definitely better than The Amazing Spider-Man 2, in my opinion. Doesn't mean that has to be your opinion. But I really like the first Amazing Spider-Man, the first one with Andrew Garfield. I really like that movie a lot. And I thought this was better than that one. So yeah, I have Homecoming and Far From Home above every other Spider-Man movie except Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. But that's just me. But it didn't work for you. But you know what's cool? That it's your least favorite, but apparently you still enjoyed it. Because you went back and you watched it. You enjoyed it. You've seen it twice. And you love the JJ thing. That was really great too. So, hey, there you go. Bottom line is, the important thing here is, Johnny, is that you went to a movie and you had a good time. Maybe it's not your favorite Spider-Man movie. Maybe it's the bottom for you and your least favorite of them. That's fine. But at least you had a good time. And that's the important thing. And I'm glad that you did, my friend. All right. Chris M. writes, I've seen Far From Home twice now. What a fun ride. Zendaya and Tom's chemistry shine through so beautifully, and I absolutely love Jake Gyllenhaal's performance. His rant on top of the bar gives me chills. Again, to me though, his rant on top of the bar was probably my least favorite part of the movie. Because it was so on the nose. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let us pull out the PowerPoint presentation and explain the whole evil plot to the audience in the most overt, obvious way possible. In a completely unbelievable way that it actually would have happened. No. Gyllenhaal gave a great performance, all that kind of stuff, but yeah, in a movie that I really thoroughly enjoyed, that was my least favorite part. That's a scene I really think they could have done better and done differently. But still a great movie overall, and I gotta completely agree with you. One of the big strengths of this movie is the MJ Peter relationship. So sweet, so nice, awkward, and in all the best way. It just, in a way that, and there's a reason I don't like these relationships in comic book movies, but in this one, they nailed it. And I loved it, and I'm looking forward to seeing them together again. And I don't say that often about comic book movies, man, but Chris, I'm 100% in agreement with you on that one. That dynamic, that chemistry was really sharp. And I attributed a lot of it to the improvement in Zendaya. And I've never liked her all that much. Then I started to get into her with Greatest Showman. I did not like her in Homecoming. And in this one, I just thought she was flat out great. Just thought she was great. All right. Vince Carter of Mars writes, could not stop pumping my fists in the air when J.K. Simmons came and screamed, yeah! Brought me back to seeing the Raimi films in theaters 10 years ago. Again, such a great moment, such a great pop. But again, I don't think it's a permanent thing. I suspect that was a one-time only cameo shot. I don't think we're going to see J. Jonah Jameson as a regular character in these movies moving forward. I don't think it is. I hope I'm wrong, and I haven't heard any insider information to say that. I'm just guessing. But I think it was a one-time thing. Mason Kackman writes, that dream sequence was so trippy and so good. My favorite scene of the movie. Not my favorite, but damn visually was so creative, so imaginative. And again, going back to something somebody brought up earlier, the zombie Iron Man thing as a part of it. One of the darkest things they've ever done. Darkest visual things they've ever done. Thanos snapping off half of existence is the darkest thing they've ever done. But visually speaking, that Iron Man thing was pretty damn stoky. I mean, it was just great. Vince Carter of Mars writes, also, I'm listening while on my shift delivering pizzas, so thanks for the entertainment. Well, I'm glad we can be here, man. And can you bring some over to my place? I do have a little UFC viewing party going there. You got Dennis coming over here in a bit. You guys know Dennis. So Dennis is coming over in a bit. A bunch of my buddies coming over tonight. We're going to watch these fights. I hope you guys are going to watch some of these fights tonight too. And drive safe, man. Drive safe while you're delivering those pizzas, man. You got precious cargo, my friend. Ben Burnside writes, when Mysterio died in the movie, I audibly said, damn it, in the movie theater. This villain death stung me more than when Claw died. Oh, I hated, oh my God, I wanted Claw to live. Andy Serkis's Claw is so good, but I wasn't disappointed. Not because I didn't love this character, but because this character, I felt, played his purpose. His purpose was now done. And it was okay that he died. And for him to have this last will and testament sort of confessional at the end required his death. There's just too many other Spider-Man, too many better Spider-Man villains in the pantheon of Spider-Man villainry that they need to move on to. And I felt like after this, there's really nothing more for Mysterio to do. It's time to move on. And I was okay with it. I was okay with it. But I'm with you, man. I felt that when Claw died in Black Panther, damn, he's so good. You could have used him in so many different ways. I don't feel that way about Mysterio. I think they did a great job with him. I thought Gyllenhaal played him great, but his role was now done. And I'm okay with it. I also would have been okay if he lived. I wouldn't have complained if he lived at the end, but I felt very satisfied. I thought his ending was a very satisfying ending, so I felt good about it. McDavid deserved better, and as always, of course he does, writes, I love how they're mixing classic story elements with modern twists. The Alex Jones spin on the Bugle works and creates intrigue about Pete's occupation. Again, I don't think we're ever going to see Peter working at the Bugle. Them revealing his identity kind of undoes all of that. And I'm not big on the Alex Jones spin because to me, that's not who J. Jonah is. But that's just me. There have been different incarnations of J. Jonah. He's been treated different ways at different times throughout the movies. And I respect that. But I feel like, did I have popcorn earlier? Oh, no, so it's gone. It was a shard of ice out of my thing. I felt like, is that a popcorn? When did I have popcorn? Anyway, now that drama is behind us, I'm not big on the Alex Jones spin, which is fine. And he was only giving one statement, so who knows? But hey, if J. Jonah really feels that Spider-Man is a menace, and he feels like he needs to protect the world by telling the world the truth, then that's J. Jonah. A whack crack job like an Alex Jones, I hope they don't take, if we ever see J. Jonah again, and I don't think we are, but if we ever do see JJ in here again, I hope they don't just make him some crackpot moron like an Alex Jones. I hope they actually make him a guy who actually wants what's best for the people. And he's just wrong. I'd be more in for that, but we'll see how they kind of navigate that as we move forward. All right, Ben Burnside writes, if Tony Stark would very publicly refer to my life's work of blood, sweat, and tears as barf, I would be a little pissed off too, just saying, oh yeah. That was a really nice way they tied that in because it gave a little bit of, not justification for him being willing to kill hundreds of thousands of people, but you can see why it would piss him off. It doesn't explain him turning into a homicidal maniac willing to murder thousands upon thousands of people, but it does say why he doesn't like Tony Stark. That is absolutely true. Director 5 writes, once I knew Jake was the bad guy, it ruined it for me. Oh, that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. I mean, look, most people going in knew Jake was the bad guy. It is Mysterio after all. But they did try to do a lot of work to try to convince a lot of people that maybe he's a hero at the beginning. And they did a really good job of it. Now, I don't know if you're saying that it ruined it for you just on the basis that he's a bad guy, or if what you're saying is the turn was done badly and that turned you off. For whatever reason, it's unfortunate because that was a strength for a lot of other people. But hey, man, if it didn't work for you, my brother, it didn't work for you. And that's the subjectivity of film, my friend. All right. Ben Burnside writes, in Far From Home, I thought that Favreau's performance as Happy was the best I've seen of him as this character for the MCU. I don't know if it's his best, but it's certainly the most meaty. And I thought he was played it very consistently with the Hap we've got in other incarnations. I thought he was great in it. I hope that when they do more Spider-Man movies, personally, I would love to see, just because of who he is, I would love to see Jon Favreau and Hap have ongoing role within the MCU, even if it's not in Spider-Man movies. But you're right. I thought he was, Ben, absolutely. He was great in this movie. All right. Venkat Ram writes, one of two. I only know Jake from a few things, but goddamn, if it was anyone else who played out the scene where he explains who he is and what his deal is, what he actually said is so ridiculous, but he sold me on it. And you know what? You're not wrong, because you're right. That scene is ridiculous. It is so on the nose. Mwahaha! Let's tell everybody what our evil plan is, everybody, and go off in very fine detail, point by point. It was ridiculous. What salvages the scene, you're absolutely right, was Jake. I'm not going to go so far as to say no other actor in the world could have possibly done what Jake did. I think there are other actors in the world who maybe could have pulled it off too. But Jake did fantastic, and he made it plausible, and he salvaged that scene. Because you're right, if that scene, and there are other actors who could have done it too, but I'm just saying, if that scene is not acted as well as Jake Gyllenhaal performed it, I think that could have been a real low point for the film. And I already do feel like it was a low point for the film. But it's salvaged somewhat because of the performance of Jake Gyllenhaal. And you're right, if it wasn't performed that well, ooh, it could have been a train wreck. It could have stopped the movie in its tracks, because I really do think it's a low point in the film. But you're right, Venkat, I agree. He salvaged it. He made it even worth watching. So I'm completely with you on that, Venkat. Absolutely. All right. Canada Rocks writes, not on the same level as Ragnarok, but definitely one of the funnier comic book movies. It is one of the funnier comic book movies. Standout moments, Dutch acting like Canadians, yep. And Murren Starr's story about his wife faking the blipping. Oh my God, that was so funny. I forgot about that. The teacher sitting beside, did I tell you about how my wife faked her own blipping, that she blipped? We had a funeral and everything. She just ran up. Oh my God. That character was so funny. And it kind of makes me lament a little bit that because you got JB Smoove in there. They didn't give him as good material as they gave Star. They didn't give him nearly as much good material. They gave him all the great material. And that joke about his wife faking his own blipping, absolutely hilarious. I laughed just as hard the second time I saw the movie at that joke as I did the first time. That's when a joke is really good, when you've already heard the joke and yet it comes on again and you still laugh as hard. That is a big giveaway, Canada Rocks, as to when it's a good one, and that was an absolute good one, and I love that moment. And yes, absolutely, they were playing the Dutch off like Canadians, which I thought was really, really fun. All right. Hey guys, listen. We're going to still go another 10 or 15 minutes or so, but then we're going to take another 5-minute break because we've gone almost another hour and a half. Pretty soon, we're getting close to the 3-hour mark. Time flies. Time flies when you're talking about movies that you have fun with. So we're going to take another 10 or 15 minutes or so, and then we're going to take another 5-minute break. Just give me a heads up warning here. All right. Kamikon writes, Far From Home gave me chills. I hadn't felt that since seeing Tobey's Spider-Man 1 in the theaters. The scenes where Spider-Man was whipping out hordes of drones, filming with, oh, that was great. And yeah, it was when he's just really wrecking shop. Because we haven't really seen Spider-Man do that yet in the MCU. Like really just going full destructio, right? And when he just starts ripping apart the battle droids, for lack of a better term, the drones, that was great. And one of the reasons, probably the main reason, Kamikon, why when talking about this movie, I think that this was the best action we've ever had in any Spider-Man movie, and him just wrecking shop on all the drones was absolutely probably the biggest part about that. Including the part when he starts utilizing his spider sense and starts dodging through all the cloaked ones. I thought that was great. I thought it was wonderful. Totally out on that. That filled my heart with a lot of joy, my friend. That filled my heart with a lot of joy. All right. Ninja Greg writes, hey, John, the scenes with Brad in the scene with Brad, well, it was in the bathroom. Not sure about what the one in the bathroom is. Which one was Brad in the bathroom? I don't remember. I can't remember that one. What was that one, you guys? Okay, anyway, listen, guys, I am now going to take, I'm really thirsty, so I'm now going to take another 5-minute break here. So if you guys will indulge me for 5 minutes, I'll be right back. I'm going to refill the glass again, use the bathroom again, just check my air conditioning, and we will be right back. I'll see you in just a moment. Be right back. are back, ladies and gentlemen. That was our final break. We've got about another 20 minutes or so that we have on the show. We've actually gotten through most of the stuff that you guys have sent in. Now, we're probably not going to get through all of them that got sent in today. We have gone through a lot of them. We've gone through most of the questions that got sent in today. So we're going to get through a hell of a lot of them. We still got 20 more minutes to get through. So I'm going to say, guys, listen, if you haven't sent in a super chat already to put in a question or whatever, you probably shouldn't if you want it to get answered right now. Like if you still want to send one in for it to get answered in a companion video to this tomorrow, that's fine. Feel free to do that. But I just want to give you a heads up that if you haven't sent in a super chat yet, you can still do it, but it probably won't get answered today. Actually, there's probably some here that aren't going to get answered anyway until we do the follow-up video tomorrow or Monday. So they will all get answered. They will absolutely all get answered. We've gotten through most of them already. We've had a pretty good pace here today, I guess. But anyway, we got about another 20 minutes or so let's keep things going. All right. Oh, and by the way, I realized as I was getting a drink here that when Ninja Greg writes the scene with Brad in the bathroom, I guess talking about the bathroom on the plane. That was funny. When Peter opens the door and just Brad's there, that was pretty funny, if that's what you're talking about. All right. Tall Dude 3231 writes, "Hey, John, crazy watching Far From Home when the earthquake happened yesterday. Luckily, we walked back in, but missed Mysterio's revenge speech." Oh, yeah. I can't imagine. First of all, you know what? I'm going to do this. Is so unprofessional of me. I'm going to do this on air right now. I totally forgot. I got to get my buddy. See if I can get my buddy to bring, where is it? Okay, hold on a second. Hold on a second. Hey man, could you pick up like maybe a bunch of Doritos and some Diet Pepsi on your way over? Question mark. Pretty please? Exclamation point. Sorry, had to send that out. John, couldn't you done that off camera? Yeah, I probably should have done that off camera. Anyway, yeah, I mean, to be in a movie theater when that would happen, like I can't even imagine. That must be like a really odd thing. Now, so I'm guessing they got all of you to go out of the theater and then watch you back in. That would have been crazy. And if you missed the Mysterio's revenge speech, probably okay. Because to me, that was the low part of the movie, Tall Dude. That was the low part of the movie, not the thing you should worry most about missing. All right. But thankfully, everybody was okay. All right, here we go. Matt Thornton writes, "I'm sure Peter won't have too much to worry about Mysterio framing him. Remember, MJ and Happy could simply say, 'We were there, Mysterio's lying.' Yeah, but like that would do anything. Honestly, I mean, when there's video of it and you have people believing the video, hey, look, we live in a day and age right now where facts seem to mean very little. Like I'm not going to get political or anything, but I mean, we have elected government officials. When there's clear evidence of something, just say no, and everybody just believes it. So I don't know. That wouldn't just fix everything, Matt. Let's face it. In the world we live in today, that wouldn't just fix it. What you're saying makes sense. It totally makes sense. Also, my buddy just replied to me. Got to make sure I got Doritos and Texi. Okay, cool. Sorry, guys, it is UFC. What you're saying is completely makes sense, but in the world we live in, yeah, it wouldn't solve the problem, unfortunately. Valhalla Erickson writes, "I am sick of Disney having Spider-Man's villains' backstories revolve around Tony Stark. It's a Spider-Man film, not an Iron Man film." Dude, listen, I've been telling you, they make Spider-Man. Marvel has doubled down on making Spider-Man just Iron Man Jr. But I'm okay with what they've done up to this point. I'm okay, Valhalla, what they've done up to this point. But I'm with you on the, okay, now I'm done. No more. No more of the villain is going to be another person who was attached to Tony Stark and is disgruntled with Tony Stark as an old Tony Stark enemy. No more. You did it again with Mysterio, and it worked. It worked. Thumbs up. But enough's enough. You've gone back to this well too many times. It's time to move on. Get past this. And I'm with you on that completely. I think it's time to move on. I'm okay with it up till now, but it's time to move on. You and me are on the same page on that one, buddy. All right. Ben Burnside writes, "So happy that Simmons is back. Me too, man. At least for now. I don't know if we're going to see him again, but it's nice to see him in the post-credit scene. The MCU still surprises me just how clever they are with their films and how in touch they are with their fans. They very much are very much in touch with their fans. That is clear. They are very much in touch with their fans. And they know, look, their number one thing is to be crowd pleasing. Be crowd pleasing. Even when it causes plot holes. even when it causes other issues. Be crowd pleasing. And quite often they find ways to make excellent movies also while being crowd pleasing. They don't always knock it out of the park with excellence in their filmmaking, but they do a lot of the times. But they always have their eyes on being crowd pleasing. Give the audience a good time. And that goes a long way. And Spider-Man Far From Home is another good example of that, Ben. Leonardo Contreras writes, what if we stopped starting a question with what if? Well, then it would be a much better world. Leonardo, would be a much better world, my friend. Baxter Kirkdoffer, I hope I'm saying your name right, Baxter. Hey, John, love the show. Thank you so much, Baxter. Appreciate that, brother. I saw Far From Home last night, and now I'm headed to see it again with my dad. I loved it that much. Sad to see an end to the saga. Oh, look, this is nothing. This ain't the end of anything. Believe me, this Spider-Man movie, I mean, obviously you've seen it. You know what I'm talking about. This is not the end of a saga by any stretch of the imagination. This is just the next chapter. I mean, I said this before Endgame came out, and some people got mad at me for saying, but it was true. Like, every song, like, Endgame is the end of the era, blah, blah, blah. I said, guys, seriously? Ultimately, Endgame is just another Marvel movie. It's just another movie, because guess what? After that, they got another one coming out in 2 months. And they're going to have another one coming out about 8 or 9 months after that. And they're going to have another one coming out a few months after that. As big as and as important as all that kind of stuff as Endgame is, at the end of the day, it's just the next Marvel film. And then there's another one. And then there's another one. And now Spider-Man Far From Home came out. And guess what? Feels like this is the end of an era. And yeah, Kevin Feige and everybody uses the terminology of phases. It's really just semantics. The next Marvel film comes out after that. And then the next film comes after that. So don't be too disheartened. Don't be too disheartened. More are coming. More are definitely coming. Ben Burnside writes, did Aunt May and Happy get snapped? No explanation. Yeah, they did. Yeah, and they did explain that in the movie. Remember, Aunt May was telling the story that when she came back after the blip, she went back to her apartment. There were other people living there, remember? And it happened to Happy too. He said, this is my blip beard, because he's grown since coming back from the blip. So yes, they did explain it. Ninja Greg writes, J.K. scene could set up for future Spider-Verse film. I don't think they're doing any more Spider-Verse film. I don't think that's going to set anything up there. There's many different things they could do, but I don't think there's any sort of thing attached there to that. Let's see. Rashawn Daly writes, they do a twist and make Norman Osborn Flash's dad. It's possible. Possible. But then again, we don't know that Sony is even going to let Marvel use the Osborns. They could be saving the Osborns specifically for their Venomverse. I mean, it's possible. We don't know. Maybe he does pop up in the MCU, but maybe not. But don't assume that just because Spider-Man's in one, that just automatically means that Sony's going to let them use the Osborns. They might want to use the Osborns themselves. So just something for us to keep in mind. Gabe Campbell writes, I love this movie. My favorite moment was the first time Mysterio used his illusion to mess Spidey up complete comic book glory. And you know what? That's one of the things I said when I reviewed it before we could spoil it. When I reviewed it, I said, this movie, more than any other MCU movie, really does feel like it just jumped right off a comic book page. And you can take that good or bad, however you want. But to me, I've never seen an MCU movie that really felt like it really did just jump off the comic book page. Both its strengths and some of its weaknesses come from that. But I really felt like Watts in this one zeroed in on wanted this to feel like a living motion picture of a comic book. And it did do that a lot on many levels. So I'm with you on that, dude. JPQ Stevens writes, he needed Edith to get more drones. Yeah, I know he needed to get more drones, but really, that's the thing. He already basically fundamentally had what he wanted. The drones with weapons, illusions, he was doing it all already. So his big grand scheme was just to get a few more? I don't know. It seems a little weak to me. I think you're absolutely right, but that is not enough to me. To me, that seems a little weak. Because he was already destroying towns and cities with weaponry and all that kind of stuff, and that he was able to fly in and make it look like he was the hero to stop it all. And he was already a big news sensation. So it seems like the big plan was just to be able to get a few more? I don't know. Seems a little, so I'm agreeing with you. I agree, but it doesn't seem like it's enough. It just doesn't seem like it's enough to me. All right. Hudson Smith writes, Mysterio needed the extra drones in order to create an Avengers level threat. In the beginning, he could only get one elemental per attack, but with Edith, he could easily get all 4 elementals and a wider reach in the city. Again, I'm not sure that that's true. I'm not sure that that's true. Because remember, when they were fighting the Fire One, these are just projectors. They can make them look as big or as small as they want. It doesn't really matter. Now, he couldn't have enough destructive force to destroy half of London. So there was that. But again, to me, it seems like something he already had, and the big plan of the villain is just to get more of what he already had, seems a little weak. Seems a little weak to me. But maybe Hudson, speaking to this, and by the way, that's a really big super chat. Thank you for sending in something that large and supporting the channel that way. Thank you, my friend. Maybe it goes to something that wasn't said on screen. Maybe he had bigger plans for even after London that involved an even bigger thing than what was revealed on screen. So we shouldn't preclude, I guess, to your point, maybe we shouldn't preclude the thought that maybe there was even more that comes later. Again, to me, just at face value, him just wanting to get more of what he already had to great effect. Remember, he already destroyed an entire town. He was already becoming the media darling of the world. Seems, again, to me, just a little bit weak. But perhaps, again, to your point, maybe there was even more to the plan that didn't get revealed on screen that would have necessitated possessing Edith even more moving into the future. That's a possibility that I should consider. But I'm just saying, on its face value, seems a little weak to me. But that's just me. All right. Anthony Around Town writes, so wait, if you were on an airplane during the snap and got dusted, when you blipped back, do you do so in the middle of the sky and then fall to your death? I'm going to guess no. I'm going to guess they probably just reappear on the plane. I can't back that up, and that certainly is a possible problem, but if you were to have blipped when you're on a plane, would you be completely screwed and just appear back again 10,000 feet in the air? I don't know. I'll tell you what, though, there is one thing that they did not address in the movie that I really wish they did, which is what happens, because half of all relationships in the world had one person blip out, had one person snapped. What happens now when 5 years later they come back and the person they were married to or were dating has moved on with their lives, because it's been 5 years, has moved on with their lives, is now with other people. Now what happens? Now what do you do? See, I was kind of hoping they would touch on that a little bit, but maybe they will at some other movie moving forward. But to me, that's the big question. Not so much what happens if you were in midair when you snapped out, but what happens when you come back and your wife has moved on and is now married to some other guy? Now what do you do? To me, it's a fascinating question. That's the one I wanted to see addressed. But the airplane one is a conundrum. That's a conundrum. Like, here's one. What if you were getting surgery, you were in the middle of getting a surgery, and then you snapped out? When you snap back in, do you pop back up on a table somewhere with your chest opened up or your leg opened up or whatever, and now there's no doctor around to help you out? Hey, Grizz. My friend Grizz is here. You can't see him. He's a big dog that me and Ann are house sitting, and he's hanging out with me right now as we're talking about. Just a few more minutes, Grizz, and we'll go down and get you a treat. How's that? Okay, go lay down. Good boy. Anyway, what happens if you're in the middle of receiving a big surgery, and then you snap out, and now do you snap back in the middle of your surgery with this? I don't know. Interesting question. These are questions that need to be answered. Maybe J. Jonah Jameson should do an expose on that. Let's see here. Super Nicholas 1 writes, Friend I saw it with thought I will always love I Will Always Love You montage was cringy and hated it. I loved it. It's how a school kid montage should be. I loved it. Are you kidding me? Dude, both times that I was in the theaters watching this, the moment that song starts playing, the audience loved it. The audience like laughed both times. I didn't think it was I am with you, Super Nick. I thought that was great, and it is exactly what a high school kid would have done. You know, I also really thought was great. On one of the images, it still had the Getty Images watermark on it. That was priceless. That was priceless. So, hey, if your friend didn't like it, that's fine. It's all subjective, whatever. It's all up to our opinions. But I am personally with you. You and me are on the same page on this. I thought that was awesome. I love that part. All right, Eric Gordon writes, do you think we will ever get a Daredevil's Kingpin in a Spider-Man film? I don't know. It depends. I mean, right now, it looks like Sony is using Kingpin. At least they did with Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. That doesn't mean they'll use him in live action, but maybe they will. That would be a great villain to use. That would be a great villain to have. And by the way, I know a lot of people don't like the Daredevil movie that Ben Affleck did. I did like that movie. The teeter-totter scene was terrible, but I liked that movie. And I loved Michael Clark Duncan as Kingpin. But the Kingpin in Into the Spider-Verse was also really great too. So I don't know. It's a good question. I still think there's a good chance that Sony might use him some more moving forward, but who knows? We'll wait and find out. Colby Harris writes, I was so happy to see J. Jonah Jameson back again. The biggest pop, both times I saw the movie, easily the biggest pop in the entire movie was when JK pops up on screen, no doubt. All right, Ryan Lohner writes, predicting that the next movie will have Peter forced to team up with Vulture somehow to clear his name. Again, I don't see I find it hard to believe that they're just going to pick up the story 3 years from now. I really think this, and I could be totally wrong, and I hope I'm wrong, but I don't see that happening. I think this is going to be resolved before we get to the next Spider-Man movie. The next movie can't just pick up where this one left off. It's years away, with 3, maybe 4, maybe 5 other MCU films happening between now and then. I just have a hard time believing, and we've seen the MCU deal with some big issues off camera before we pick up with the next film, and I think this might be one of them. We'll have to wait and see. You might be right, Ryan. You might be right, but I'm going to lean the other way for now, and we'll find out. All right. A New Mountaineer writes, I almost always hate romances in superhero films, but I loved MJ and Pete, though. Super adorable. Probably the only one I've ever fully enjoyed. The other ones I've enjoyed, A New Mountaineer, is Tony and Pepper. Still my favorite one I've ever seen. It's still my favorite one in any superhero film. And then next, I actually really love the Andrew Garfield, Emma Stone, Peter, and Gwen. That one worked for me on every level. It's the only thing that really worked well in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Like, is with all the problems with that movie, that was still something that whenever it was on just Peter and Gwen, that movie worked. And it was all the other stuff that was a problem. But so those two, and this one, this Peter and this MJ, I'm telling you, man, I'm with you, dude. I just ate it up. I thought it was great. All right, guys. Final 2 questions of the day, and we're going to have to wrap it up because I got people coming over, and we're approaching 3 hours and 15 minutes of doing this one so far. Board writes, Flash being knocked unconscious had me cracking up. Oh, God, that was funny. That was funny. Although I don't know why he wouldn't wake up realizing that Peter knocked him out. But again, it was just a little smack, but Peter's so strong he did it. That was a great scene. Nancy Kerrigan writes, I predict Tobey Maguire's Uncle Ben. Thoughts? Well, no, there have been rumors about that for ever since Spider-Man Homecoming. That's been around a lot. I don't think that's going to happen. As a matter of fact, I think I heard Tobey Maguire say once that he wouldn't do it. So no, I don't think that's going to happen. There's too much of an age difference between Marissa Tomei and Tobey Maguire anyway. Anyway, let me just double check that. Hold a second, let me just ask Google. Hey, Google, how old is Marissa Tomei?
Marissa Tomei is 54 years old.
She's 54. Hey, Google, how old is Tobey Maguire?
Tobey Maguire is 44 years old.
So there's 11, 12-year age difference there? So I don't know. I don't know, but maybe, I guess you could pull it off, but I think they've kind of addressed that before, and I don't think you're going to do it. All right, you know what? I said those are the last two. I'm just going to do two more just for fun here. John Wadkin writes, after two viewings, I noticed Fury and Hill talking about Kree sleeper cells as they were alerted to the elemental London attack. Throwback to Captain Marvel? Ooh, you know what, John? You just mentioned something I didn't even pay attention to. Were they actually talking about, two viewings, I noticed Fury and Hill talking about Kree sleeper cells as they were alerted to the elemental London attack. Huh? I didn't look. First of all, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying I didn't notice that. Okay, so now you've given me something that I need to keep my eyes on. So I can't really address that because I didn't notice it myself. Let me go back and watch it a third time and see what I can pick up on, because that might be significant. I need to see it again, but you might be onto something really big there, John. All right, now, final question of the day, guys, and we're going to wrap it up here. Razman's Reality writes, Marvel has a group in the comics called the Black Dahlias. Do you think that's a coincidence, or do you think that's this version of MJ's Love It necklace is hinting at future plans for her character? No. I don't think. I think that's totally coincidental. I really don't think there's anything to it. Now, again, this is the MCU. Don't put anything past them. They definitely could do something like that. But on its face value, and that's all we have to, because that's a good observation, Raz, man. That's a really good observation. I still do think it's only coincidental. I think it just played to the story of it because of the murders. I think it just works better that way. So I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no, that's not hinting at anything bigger down the line. No, that's not hinting at something grander. I think it's just coincidence. But again, don't put anything past them. And I think you might have just brought something up here, dude, that we might have to keep our eyes on moving forward. So let's do that. All right, guys, listen. We've gotten through most of the stuff here today. So everybody from Josh Goldberg, Edward Idle, Rusky, and everybody after that who sent in super chats, don't worry. In the next 48 hours, we're going to do we're only going to have to do one companion video to this. We're going to be able to get this all knocked out in one video. We're going to address all the rest of the questions in an upcoming companion video, either tomorrow or Monday. It's going to be one of the two. Keep your eyes open. We'll get it knocked out of the park there. Guys, this has been a hell of a lot of fun. This has been a hell of a lot of fun talking Spider-Man Far From Home with you guys. Thank you guys for sending in all the questions and all the observations, all the theories, all the ideas, all the evaluations. This has been a hell of a lot of fun, and I appreciate for that. I got to go back out and watch this again. Again, John just pointed out something that I go back and keep my eyes open for, because I didn't even notice that my first two times, so I got to see it again. I'm sure a lot of you guys are going to see it again too. Hey guys, listen, just so you know, this is Saturday, July the 6th. There is not going to be, normally on Sundays, we have a open mic. We're not going to have an open mic tomorrow because me, Ann, and a bunch of our friends, we're going to go to Disneyland for the day, go back to Galaxy's Edge again. And so I'm going to be out all day tomorrow. But we will be back again on Monday. Me, Robert, Chris will be back for the John Campea Show on Monday morning. Make sure you come back and join us for that, guys. And guys, thank you to all of you for being here, hanging out, watching the video, for sending in questions because you gave us great stuff to talk about, great observations about the movie, but also because you supported the channel while doing it. And I thank you very much for that. So does Rob, so does Chris, so does Aaron, so does Fact Checker Jonathan, so does Ray, so do I. So thank you for that, guys, very, very much. All right, guys, this has been a fun 3 hours and 15 minutes. We'll pick this back up again in the next 24, and we'll see you again. So for right now, my name is John Campea, and until next time, guys, bye-bye.